Some trips are felt beyond words. No one connects you to the Pacific Coast like Princess. Princess Cruises. Book now.
Traditionally, Daytona starts the racing season for sports cars, but this time it's going to end it. And it'll end it with a bang, seeing a full 2 hours of racing. It's time to get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 15 Challenge class, and you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ron Mons. Behind the scenes is our director, Hugo Louise. And Ron, we have had a season full of challenging tracks, but it ends on perhaps one of the most popular ones.
Yeah, when you think of sports car racing, both in the real world and in sim, Daytona is pretty much the next thought that pops across everybody's head. As you said in the open, really intriguing to see it be at the end of the season instead of the start. Throws in a slight little dynamic, of course, with that 2-hour race that we have in store as well. It throws things completely asunder for what these drivers usually brace themselves for. But, you know, we've had a very good time throughout Series 15. Here in the Challenge class in particular, we have seen some fantastic races, some brilliant drives to get some wins, some underdog drivers getting some triumphs as well. We've had a lot of fun, but now we've got 2 hours to cap this season off.
And this season, unfortunately, is already done for the championship being decided. Brad Dunn, even though he's within 350 points of Vernon Messer, because he has 200 drop points sitting and waiting in his pocket, that means that he, no matter what, scores enough that Vernon cannot overtake him, no matter how well Vernon finishes. But Messer is vulnerable to losing that second place. A fourth or better, that's what you need to watch out for, will lock him in. So he needs to try and finish above fourth or above that place to make sure that nobody can overtake him points-wise. You can see it's still quite close from there on down. I could go through tons of iterations, but we'd be here all night. So in the meantime, why don't we take a look at how qualifying is wrapping up, because I believe we are on the final laps for many of our drivers, and Harpert Bath looks like he is currently on the provisional pole.
And Bath has been a pretty impressive driver to keep tabs on sporadically throughout this season. You know, in this category here in the PCA Challenge class, one of the things I love is we get the opportunity to see the progression of these drivers as the season comes along, and we've been able to see that for many drivers that we didn't really talk about in the early stages, really just coming to form as this campaign went along. Of course, 8 races here compared to 7 back in Series 14, so drivers just with a bit more time to try and stretch their legs out. One of the drivers that has stood out to me the most so far this season is a man currently qualified in 3rd, really best of the rest, with your top 2 covered by absolutely nothing. It's Kenneth Eskridge, who's now slotted down to 4th. Is Brad Dunn going to jump to the pole?
All right, so our champion in waiting has now taken the fastest lap of anybody. Justin Carney, who was close to Bath, does not improve on that last lap. In fact, he had that lap deleted. So something must have happened where he went off track. In the meantime, Leon Snyman looks like he will stay put, as his final lap was about 200ths off of his quickest. Now we head to Les Carmichael here, currently in 15th spot, sits on a 1:45.9 as his quickest lap. Could use an improvement here, and I am showing him with a massive improvement if my timing and scoring is to be believed. He is about to jump up nearly to the front couple of rows.
So let's see as he heads his way into the trioval. Not a lot that can ruin a lap at this point. What kind of lap time is it for Les Carmichael as he heads his way across the stripe? 8th for the driver of the 912 car. It's not up in the first couple of rows, but that's still a pretty solid time. He bounces himself out of the midfield, which, as I said last week for the club class broadcast, being in the midfield heading down to turn number 1 here at Daytona at the start of the season finale race is a fate worse than death. So Carmichael doing everything he needs to do to assure a smooth start.
Looks like we saw Santry move up into 10th with that final lap that he crossed the line with. And 50 seconds left. This is Sherry Lee. Not sure if they're going to be able to make it around in time with that 898 car. It's going to be awful tight because you've got to navigate through the Le Mans chicane here and then get back around. Also, Gary Shank has not set a time yet. Both of his first laps got deleted. So the 949 needs to put one down, or else he's going to wind up having to do like last night's winner and start from the back of the field.
And, there was plenty of opportunities to cut your way through the running order, but in a 2-hour-long race, you don't want to start it off on a low note because that'll bode not terribly well for the rest of the journey that lies ahead for these drivers. Sherry Lee heading towards the line right now in that 898 car. Will it be an improvement on that P23 qualifying spot? Don't believe it will be. So that'll pretty much do it here for the final qualifying session of this season. And our champion in waiting, Brad Dunn, looks like he's grabbed his 4th pole so far this season.
Well done, and starts him out on the right foot. Granted, last night's pole sitter, I think, wound up finishing P10, if I'm remembering correctly. But that was because of a couple spins. Looks like they are set. So why don't you talk us through our pole-winning lap here?
Daytona, Daytona, Daytona. This is a stunner of a track, and Brad Dunn able to master it with that run down into turn number 1. Turn 1 here, absolutely brutal, especially on lap 1, but all throughout this race. Now, though, heading her way off through the little kinks into the first of the 2 horseshoes here in the infield section. Good spot to try and get a move done, but as we saw last week in the club class broadcast, was a little bit of a silent killer for these drivers, so keep an eye on that to maybe ring true once again here this week. Off through the kink now, heading your way into the second of the horseshoes. Again, another good spot to maybe get a move done, slightly less so than the first, so second, first, not exactly the same as the first, but still a good spot regardless. Now, here's the turn that I always keep an eye on, turn number 7 here. It is brutal. That outside tire bundle there, lethal. It pretty much just acts like a razor onto the field. It'll just cut everybody down to size. If you're going side by side and the driver on the outside of you runs a little bit wide, they'll probably meet that tire barrier very quickly, and they will no longer be a problem to you. Now heading your way onto the super stretch, off into the Le Mans chicane here in a couple of moments' time. Really the final heave-ho of the lap. On the brakes and down the gears are going to go. Brad Dunn, a little bit of wall contact there as he headed his way off through the turn. Keep an eye on those curbs. Of course, many changes have been done to that back section of the racetrack. Asphalt runoff area added in and expanded after the incident for Ryan Preece here a couple of years ago in the summer NASCAR Daytona race. You also have to worry about those curbs on the inside that have been changed as well. They will rattle your teeth out of your mouth. Thankfully, though, these drivers in the sim won't have to worry about it. A very well-done lap there from Brad Dunn to get his 3rd pole of Series 15.
So with him starting up at the front, now the question becomes, can he bring it home from there? As it's certainly looking like he is on good form to wrap this one out. There's the nice blimp view of this incredible circuit, which if you haven't been there in person, it is worth visiting because you don't have to go up to the blimp to see the whole thing. There are parts up there in the stands there that you see in the background that if you go high enough, you can literally see the entire track from one spot. So it is definitely a very spectator-friendly circuit to visit. As I think we're just wrapping up our warm-up session now, and we'll head off to our starting grid in just a moment. I think the big talking point, Ron, is going to be the fuel saving. Who is going on the 2-stopper? Who is going on the 3-stopper?
And as has been discussed throughout the week's festivities here leading into the Series 15 finale here with the Challenge class, This is a good track to try and get some fuel saving done. You've got some very heavy braking zones. You think of turn 1, you think of the Le Mans chicane, and even the still heavy braking zones, but not nearly as heavy as those turns. You think of the horseshoes, you think of turn 7, spots where you can just get a lot of lifting done, help yourself out in that regard, and along with the drafting as well. I mean, in terms of roval configurations, I think Daytona probably uses the most amount of oval out of all of them. It's certainly up there on the list. It's pretty much just like a couple of 100 feet out of the tri-oval before oval turn 1 and 2 when you cut down onto the infield, and then the backstretch when you're going through the Le Mans chicane. That is it. So very fast racetrack. This is probably one of the fastest that we have visited all season. So good spot to get a lot of drafting, get some fuel saving done, and just be smooth sailing strategically.
But you got to definitely make the effort to do it. Or else you're not going to be able to make it, as we saw last night. But let's go through that grid, as Brad Dunn, as we mentioned, will be your pole sitter, with Harpreet Bath starting in second. It's Justin Carney in third, followed by Vernon Messer in fourth. That's a good start for him. Remember, that's where he needs to finish to lock down P2. John Kaplan will be fifth, and Chris Strankovic will start from the sixth position. Then it is Kenneth Eskridge in P7. Les Carmichael starts in the eighth spot, and Leon Snyman will be P9. David Sauntry, he's got a top 10 for the start of this race. Andrew Hillman on the inside of row 6 is joined by Joe Birkenstock to the outside of that row. Patrick Aguirre starts 13th. He's got Jeffrey Block for company, as Jonathan Sesportis starts 15th. Keith Markison will be 16th next to him. You've got Dave Jones then on the inside of the following row in 17th, 18th going to Adam Holland. In 19th, it'll be Juan Fong, as Chris Schuessler will begin on the outside of row 10 and 20th. Jack Stevenson starts 21st, and Tim Taplin starts in 22nd. Sherry Lee, one of the later qualifiers, had to settle for 23rd, as Lisa Eskridge will be in the 24th spot. And Gary Shank did get a lap in, but unfortunately it didn't put him above that final position of 25 cars here today, as they line up on the super stretch, getting ready to go. And the drivers find themselves with a daunting 2 hours. And one thing we should note, Ron, this is the first time that the PCA has done this 2-hour endurance race as part of the regular series racing. They've had endurance team racing and other special events and series that they have done, but never part of the series racing.
Yeah, so this has been a new change, and I gotta say, from my perspective as a broadcaster, I think a good change as well. It's added in like an extra dynamic heading off into the end of this season. These drivers having to think a little bit differently about this race. Also helps with this, a racetrack that they've been at several times before. I think everybody throughout this field, if they haven't had experience driving around Daytona in the sim, they've probably seen some racing festivities going on here. So it just added in a little bit of extra spice that these drivers have had to contend with. I've personally been a real big fan of this. I think it's thrown these drivers just enough of a curveball that they can either try and swing at and crack it out of the ballpark to get a home run, or they've tried swinging at it, broken their bat, and probably ended up picking up a splinter.
All right, heading through turn 3 now. Brad Dunn going to try and pick up another win after already having done so back at the first round in Mexico City, then followed it up back-to-back at Phillip Island. Took a little bit of a break off at Sebring, returned to the top step at Long Beach, and has not won since then. Even still, he has had a second place at Suzuka. He is one to watch out for, looking very, very strong this season indeed. The safety car getting ready to leave them to the control of that 241 machine, and they'll have to wait until they get the call of the green flag. Then it's going to be a mad dash down into turn 1, which can often see problems. There is the green flag. We go racing at Daytona, and it's a very good start by Brad Dunn. He is all on his lonesome already, coming down to the braking of the first corner. Justin Carney, though, will take that second place away as Bath maybe a little bit timid on the outside into the first turn. Behind him, we watch to see if there are any issues. I'm not seeing any smoke, so it looks like we're good.
Yeah, we're smooth so far, but as the field descends their way down into the Air National Horseshoe, this was when trouble started to arise 1 week ago in the club class, and there it is, heading off through that section. That's a 912, looping it around, going for a massive detour off through the grass. Getting it looped around, can see a little bit of front-end damage on that race car, but only one driver running into trouble all through there. Now, into the second horseshoe. I think it's probably even more tough than the first just because of how awkward the braking zone is, but everybody able to get a very clean run all through the infield as they head their way back onto Oval 1 and 2.
Yeah, that Western Horseshoe, I agree. It's a lot trickier than it looks on paper. Les Carmichael was the one that we saw spitting. So far, the only issue, knocking on wood, of course, we're not through the first lap quite yet, and hopefully we don't see too many drivers get a cut course penalty down through the bus stop chicane. You don't want to start the race off with that. Dunn covers the inside, coming down into that chicane as Justin Carney was maybe getting a little close for comfort. Carney, though, backing up the entry quite a bit. Bath almost got into the back of him. Thankfully, no contact amongst the first cars.
Yeah, and even in these high-powered GT3 machines, these drivers are going to be playing their games, heading their way through that Le Mans chicane, trying to figure out, okay, when do I choke up the cars behind? When do I try and just gas it and get a good run? It's one of the longest runs flat out for these drivers throughout the entirety of the season. So it presents a good overtaking opportunity heading down into turn number 1. And even beforehand, for that matter, I noted the prospect of having a double Frogger situation where a driver running behind their competitor will leapfrog in front only to have their competitor that they just jumped in front of be able to jump back in front of them. It can happen here. I think we saw a little bit of it already in the past 2 weeks. We'll see if we cap it off again here tonight.
So Messer is outside of his position that he needs to be in. Granted, Snyman is down in 8th. So as they stand right now, Vernon is still going to be able to take home that second position. A little bit of battling in there behind them, as I think it was Andrew Hillman just went by Leon Snyman. As we now see Leon currently sitting 3rd in the points, giving chase in that pink number 993. Up onto the banking they go once again. And if you did not tune in to the first 3 races that we've had over these 2 weeks, the magic number you're looking for is 1 hour and 20 minutes left to go. If the drivers can get past that point, then they are definitely going to be trying for a 2-stop. If they pit before that, then they're likely unable to make it to the end with only 2 pit stops.
And a bit earlier on in this broadcast, I talked about how good of an opportunity is presented towards these drivers to do fuel saving here. The inverse is true. If you're running by yourself in a pack of your own and being your own hole punch, your fuel numbers are going to be downright atrocious. So kind of the double-edged sword deal going on for these drivers as we ride on board with Harpreet Bath currently slotted in 3rd at the moment. Now, throughout this season, we have seen a slew of different drivers make their way into victory lane. Of course, our current race leader, pole sitter here tonight, and our presumptive champion, Brad Dunn, already 3 wins to this campaign. But fascinatingly enough, he hasn't scored a win since Long Beach for round number 4. Since then, Jan Eskridge was able to win at Sebring. Justin Carney was able to get back-to-back wins at Alton Park and Suzuka. Leon Snyman, your winner last time out at Road Atlanta, may be looking to make his way up the running order a little bit, but he's currently under an immense amount of pressure from Joe Birkenstock right behind him, the 670 car.
Birkenstock looking a little wide coming into that Western Horseshoe. Better exit for Leon. And now he'll get himself a few more car lengths over the Lego machine, but this is where it starts to get reeled back in. As long as you get a decent exit, it is up onto the banking. You heard Brad talking, or Ron talking about that a little bit earlier, that the drivers just punch a huge hole in the air through here. It's such a fast track on that banking, with it being flat out all the way until they get down here to the Le Mans chicane. We hop on board Harpreet Bath, and pretty good run through there. He's still chasing Justin Carney, who stole that 2nd place right at the first corner.
Yeah, so trying to keep his nose to the grindstone to try and get this spot. But at the moment here, I mean, we're only just a tick over 5 minutes into this race. So what is really in it for these drivers just to throw caution to the wind and get the moves done? These top three have been able to break away into their own nice little neat pack as they have holding on to over a second gap for themselves and John Kaplan for fourth. So that's going to be fascinating to see them maybe try and grow that, as Dave Jones currently found himself in a nice little ding-dong fight side by side as they head their way down into turn number one here. Where I was talking about some drivers maybe not seeing the sense of battling farther up the road, but in the case of Chris Schuessler, who's just able to hold on to P17, and David Jones, who is unsuccessful in that challenge, they clearly see there's a fight to win.
There's definitely not a lot of drivers making big moves right now, so that tells me there's quite a few that are trying to think big picture. The most positions gained is tied by a few drivers having a 3 up. Schuessler's one of those. I think Adam Holland as well as Andrew Hillman have also gained 3 spots since the beginning. Otherwise, it's been relatively uneventful, but you kind of expect that. You would hope for that, Ron, at the start of an endurance race. You want everybody to be able to be patient.
Yeah, even in the regular 1 hour races, there's a certain amount of patience that you have to have on these 2 hour races. It may seem just double the length, but for these drivers, you have to pretty much quadruple the level of patience, because not only do you have to double the length, you have triple the pit stops. You've got a lot of different challenges that are thrown these racers' way, and maybe an extra hour, but there's a lot more chainsaws added into these drivers' repertoires that they have to try and juggle throughout this race. If they can't do that, one little mistake, that's going to end in catastrophe. We're talking about the battles maybe settling out, though. This is Justin Carney all over the back of Brad Dunn.
So I wondered whether or not he's going to try and catch up. Well, he's not just catching up. He is on the attack, looking at the outside down into turn one. He's got to be careful because Bath is right there. In fact, Bath got a pretty good exit. Just unfortunate, it's kind of hard to pass coming down into the International Horseshoe, though not impossible. And they'll stay as they were. Dunn leading, Carney second, and Bath in third. You mentioned they had a gap to those behind them. Well, that has now disappeared as well. So just that one little battle has cost them.
Yeah, so teamwork making the dream work for the drivers behind as they've broken out to a small little mutiny. I wonder what these drivers are going to do in response, whether they're going to try and settle down or if that battling is just going to get more intense as we go on throughout the opening stages of this race. If I had to wager money on it, you know, Joe, this is honest, if I were a betting man, I probably would be homeless. I probably wouldn't even have socks for that matter. But if I were a betting man and if I had to bet on this, I would say that these drivers were just going to see this as an excuse to start battling really hard. Certainly in the case of Dunn and Carney, you got to imagine that Justin Carney may be feeling a little bit antsy behind that 241 machine of Brad Dunn. Harpreet Bath kind of stuck in the middle, not really sure exactly what he's going to do about this. He's feeling the pressure from the drivers who have caught up, and he's seeing the battling go on in front and pretty much imagining it as an oversized cork in the bottle right up in front, preventing him from getting away from the pressure that he's feeling behind.
And now that they've settled down on this lap, they've got it back out to 1 second. It was a half a second coming into the infield. So top three have plenty of pace from what we can see. Just if they continue to try and go side by side, they're going to lose out on that. They're not going to do that this time. Although, once again, look at how aggressive into the braking. In fact, that was too deep from Brad Dunn. He's going to lose the lead. Justin Carney is now on the top spot.
And Harpreet Bath nearly stuck it down the inside there as well. So Bath sensing the opportunity, didn't make it work, so he's still holding on to third, but now Brad Dunn in an unfamiliar position at the moment. He's going to be feeling happy about it, heading off through the banking. However, through the infield, he's going to be feeling the burn, specifically the burn on those front tires as Harpreet Bath. A little bit of correction as he headed his way off through the kink. Now, I think he's worrying more so about John Kaplan behind him. Got oh so close making contact. Small little bump and run nearly got attempted there as the drivers headed their way off through the second horseshoe. But at the moment, these drivers are still keeping it smooth. Carney and Dunn looks like they've settled their differences for now. Emphasis on for now. I don't think they're going to be fully settled down like this for the remaining 1 hour and 50 minutes. Now, though, I think our attention may have to switch to that battle for third because Harpreet Bath, he's just been stuck in a catch-22 situation throughout this race. I really feel bad for him because he's getting both of the short ends of the stick. He's getting slowed down by the drivers battling up in front, but he doesn't really have the opportunity to get a move done from third. So he's just slowly but surely being pushed off of the cliff where the drivers behind are going to sense that opportunity and try and swoop in.
Yeah, you're right. He needs to be a lot closer if he wants to try and make the move. What about Jeffrey Block here, who's working on Patrick Aguirre? And as he tries to look to the high side, he discovers that's the longer distance. He has to get back in to get another dose of the slipstream. As he keeps peeking off to the side, I'm not seeing him really gain a whole lot, so I wonder if he'll just kind of stay put. And I want to put on my, well, as we'll talk about that point in a little bit, that was through the grass there by Jeffrey Block, and Patrick nearly got turned. If there was any contact, it was the slightest brush between bumpers. Thankfully, did not send them into a spin, but now that has settled down, I want to kind of watch whether or not Brad Dunn is actually going to go on the attack here, Ron, because I want to put on my tinfoil hat a little bit. It didn't feel like initially that was too deep into the first corner. It surprised me that he drifted wide like that. I wonder if that was intentional and he wanted Carney to be the lead car in this train.
And I think this will be the first time this phrase has ever been said in the history of RaceSpotTV broadcasting. I can get down with that conspiracy theory. I think that is a smart call. You got to kind of play those small little games, just a bit of trickery here at Daytona. Whenever you get draft involved, you're going to see the true craftiness of drivers and some of the shenanigans that they can think of in their own head. Very different circumstances, but I'll bring it up regardless because I think it is a story that we can kind of take some lessons from. I remember covering a race. It was a Spec Racer Ford race on one of the Roval configurations of Homestead, Miami. Now, very different circumstances from that, much stronger draft, so it kind of brought that in even more. But through one of the final turns onto the flat-out end to that lap, everybody was just pretty much parking the bus as they headed their way back onto the high banks just to kind of play chicken with their competitors, say, okay, you can be the leader now, I'm going to get the draft. Of course, different matter here. They're not talking about trying to gain time, they're just thinking about trying to gain a good fuel number, but it still gets brought into the discussion regardless, and for a driver's mind, when they're thinking, okay, I still want to be fast, I still want to get that good fuel number, what is the best compromise where I can have my cake and eat it too? That's kind of the deal that you've got.
And that was Ken Eskridge getting elbowed out of the way. Chris Drankovic suddenly snuck underneath him coming through the International Horseshoe. And now he is well ahead. We haven't seen any penalties up till now. I wonder if there is going to be one handed off for that as David Sawtrey escapes off to the grass to go around Ken Eskridge. Not sure why Ken is still a little slow there. Now he's got Joe Birkenstock close behind. We hop on board the Potomac region driver, and he's going to try and use this launch off of turn 6 to get himself a nice pull down along NASCAR 1 and 2.
And Birkenstock has been able to put together a quiet but still strong performance, looking to break his way up into the top 10, just building the run here today, brick by brick in the Lego machine.
See what you did there, and he's going to see if he can stack them high enough to get one more position up to the top 10 as they go through that backstretch chicane once more and out onto the banking of NASCAR 3 and 4. I can report that Bath has dropped off of P1 and P2 by about 1.3 seconds. I don't know if there was any slowdown penalties involved there, but he's been making some mistakes that have cost him. We check back in with those leaders now. And once again, a little look to the inside from the 241, but no serious attempt to try and go by the Chrome 292 machine. They're also very much dropping 4th place as John Kaplan has been well broken off from the trio.
Yes, as we continue to keep tabs on this battling all throughout the pack, here's Ken Eskridge, who just finds himself in the midst of battle after battle. This now Keith Markinson looking to try and apply some pressure on him. Hey, Birkenstock around! Oh my goodness me, that was actually David Sawtrey. I apologize there. Oh, that just gave me a panic attack in the booth.
I mean, he was completely prone, perpendicular to the track, right where you want to place the car. Thankfully, everybody coming up on him was very heads up in that situation. Nobody wound up running into him. And that was completely self-imposed. Credit to him for avoiding the temptation to just pull forward. He eventually found reverse and got himself out of the way. And no harm, no foul. But he did cost himself down to 15th. He just regained 14th as somebody else seems to have had a spin. We jump a little bit ahead of him on this battle coming into the bus stop chicane between Messer and Kaplan. These are the two I was saying had dropped off of the top three. It's still at about 2 seconds currently that they are losing out. Kaplan has been steadily pushing the hole in the air for Vernon Messer for some time. So Vernon probably sitting pretty at this stage.
You know, just one little point to raise about that incident we saw a few moments ago. With anything more than 50 milligrams of caffeine in my system and what I had for dinner, that nearly resulted in me having a heart attack. That would actually be worthy of some sort of social media clip here on RaceSpotTV. As contact made it to one. Oh, and gonna find the pit attenuator there. Chris Drankovich making contact there with Hillman. I knew that side-by-side racing was going to end in some sort of disaster. It was just the way those two cars were close before they even thought about breathing on that brake pedal. That felt like almost an inevitability there, John. Unfortunately for Drankovich, going to find that pit attenuator and pretty much end his night.
That is one of the more unusual incidents I've ever seen with that pit attenuator. And no wonder you saw that car, Drankovich, immediately tow. Yeah, you can't get it to turn in. Got himself down to the inside, made contact, but then, unfortunately for him, the car that he nearly spun kind of pushed him into there unintentionally. So we'll see what the stewards think of it, but I almost feel like the punishment for Chris was self-imposed.
Ooh, it's a wild spinning off the track there for Tim Taplin. Going to find the tire barrier there as well. That was very bizarre. It looked like he lost it in the braking zone. Was there another car involved in that, potentially spinning him off into the infield? That is
anybody making contact.
That is truly bizarre to see him spun off in that part of the racetrack. As we take a look at the replay, there's another driver involved, but I think it was just some evasive maneuvering in the heat of battle, eventually catching up to him. The problem is with these Porsches, not a problem per se, but just one of the other quirks of it. Considering it is a rear-end race car, once you get the back end a little bit squirrely and you get really aggressive on those steering movements, it's going to act like a pendulum, and then eventually that will be too much to try and counteract with counter steering, and you will loop it around. That's pretty much exactly what happened there with Taplin down the backstretch.
Oh, we got a battle for the lead. Dunn is working on Carney, and he's got the inside coming down into the International Horseshoe. He manages to sneak ahead. So if he was trying to save some fuel, he seems to have decided that is enough as he's finally back up to the top spot. Or maybe it was the fact that they separated from Bath, and now he felt like he could fight and not have to worry about losing time, making themselves vulnerable to P3. Whatever the case, Brad Dunn back up to the top of the field. And if you would like to see this field racing some more, we've got Series 16 coming Wednesday, August 26th. That's when it will all kick off, and we will return for that. We have even more racing coming before then, as the next 3-hour TRS race is going to be at Watkins Glen on Sunday, June 14th. So make sure and tune in for that. Already getting set up for the next season. We haven't even seen the final checkered flag here for Series 15.
And all credit to the steering committee here in the PCA, all the drivers again involved in this community as well to get everything settled, ready to go. Of course, the summer break will give these drivers just a good opportunity to reset, relax, take it easy, and then come time for the end of the summer and the beginning of the fall, it's going to be fun. As here we go, the fun kicking out, and again out there at the front of the field is Justin Carney around the outside. Maybe thought about going for the move into turn number 1. Brad Dunn very shallow on entry. Thought that was going to allow Carney to sweep around the outside, but keeping the mid-speed turn going well. So for Brad Dunn, that's going to be the race lead still for him as we take a look at the moment. There goes Carney. He actually found the barrier there. That adds into it quite a lot. Gotta wonder what the damage situation is on that machine.
Yeah, that explains so much about that whole situation. And I agree that we need to try and assess to see whether or not Carney is experiencing some sort of either aero damage or maybe a bit of handling issues. Amazingly, as hard as he hit, because I could have swore that'd be enough to bend some of the carbon fiber up here. I see a little crack in the seam of where it looks like maybe he's bent some of it on the driver's left front there. But otherwise, shockingly, it doesn't look too bad.
Man, I'll tell you, Joe, this is honest. If my sense of self-esteem and self-worth was as strong as that front end, my middle school years would have been a heck of a lot easier. And my high school years, come to think of it.
I can relate on that front, unfortunately. But that did slow them up, and Harpreet has got it down to just about 1 second now. You can see him in the background in the kind of purple and white machine every once in a while showing up. But Andrew Hillman, who was involved in that incident before, I believe, has a black flag. No, excuse me, he does not have a black flag. No penalty being handed out for that incident I am seeing from race control. So Hillman does get away with it. I agree with that assessment, frankly, as he was kind of the innocent victim getting run into the side of through there. But now, not only does he have the 981 behind him of Aguirre, Joe Birkenstock, who we're right on board with, is well within reach that he's going to start gaining each time they hit the oval.
And we did also see that penalty be levied towards Chris Durankovitz's way. He was a driver that ended up smacking a pit attenuator there on pit exit, heading down into the infield. That's not even like kicking a man when he's down. That's pretty much picking him up and throwing him into the open mouth of an active volcano. Unfortunate to see that go down there. But Joe Birkenstock, we brought on board with him in that 670 machine, currently holding on to 9th at the moment, trying to apply some pressure, as that pressure will end up getting the best of Patrick Aguirre. He's going to run wide, heading off through the West Horseshoe, and that'll be P8 for Birkenstock, probably the easiest move he's been able to put on driver so far here tonight.
And with that pass, we've got an interesting one. Hillman, Birkenstock, Aguirre, and Block, all in order, in that order on track, have gained 4 positions now. That's a very unusual one to see on my time and in scoring without some sort of accident in front of them to make that happen. But they all clearly are making good progress, although Keith Markison behind them is currently up 5 spots now. So he's also been doing just as good as they have in what is the first 20 minutes, as we got a spinner and somebody has to take real avoiding action. That was Keith Markison right there, who got around Jeffrey Block, losing control.
And Adam Holland and Dave Jones just got to blow his doors off as he tries to get a rejoined out there on the racetrack. He does without any further incident. Again, worrisome flashbacks to last week when we saw some drivers hit the other tire bundle there and actually move the tire bundle, although from our side just looked like they phased through. There's a moment for Jeffrey Block. Easy mistake to make, to be sure. It's those curbs. They're absolutely brutal. Very similar turn type, very similar curb type to the bus stop at Watkins Glen, where those curbs are essentially all or nothing. You either need to slam over them and destroy your shock absorbers, or you shouldn't even worry about having to touch them with a 10-foot pole. Avoid them at all costs, or make sure they're your best friend.
This is a battle between Kaplan and Messer, which really hasn't separated since the drop of the green, I think. They've been kind of in lockstep with one another. Kaplan running 4th, Messer running 5th right now. Obviously on pretty even pace, but not good enough pace to keep up with the leaders. I said it was about 2 seconds earlier. It is now up to 4 seconds that they have been falling off. But all of this could change because we still don't know who is employing what strategy. I think I can take a pretty safe guess. It looks like Dunn, Carney, and Bath, I think, are trying for a 3-stop.
And really, they have nothing to lose either, as Vernon Messer thought about going for the move on John Kaplan, heading off into the Le Mans chicane. Thought better of it, still remains in P5. But those top 3, I mean, certainly in the case of Brad Dunn, doesn't have to worry about much when it comes to the championship. He can go out and fight. Justin Carney, I think he's going to say, you know what, I just want to try and get another win here this season. And Harpreet Bath, who's shown some incredible speed throughout this campaign already, I think he just wants to try and have a taste at glory here, and I think he has a real good opportunity to try and do it if things can go his way. We are about 15 minutes away from that first pit window opening up here, Joe, and these drivers pretty much forced to lie in the bed that they have just now finished making. Well, they're still gonna be like fluffing the pillows and all that stuff before that pit stop, but at the moment, pretty much everything that they've got right now is set in stone. Whether or not they're going to be lying on a nice little brand new Tempur-Pedic and a featherbed pillow, or whether or not they're going to be lying on a bed of nails, that remains to be determined. I know for sure that some drivers may have some regrets in their hearts about what they have done so far strategically. They're racing drivers. If I know one thing about a mindset of a racing driver, it is that sometimes they will have regrets. Whether that regret comes up when they were behind the wheel, or whether they get out of the car first, then they start to feel the regrets. That's a case-by-case basis.
Still, they used to haven't had anything to regret at this stage, unless they start also battling. They've got only about 2 seconds back to Leon Snyman, so they don't want to waste too much time. But I do think that Messer seems relatively content here. Let's see if he tries to make a move. We saw him kind of peek his nose in last time by up to here, and he's going to do so again. So he's trying for it, and in fact, he is going to actually outbrake himself. Both of them have to go over the curbing. Surely both have a slowdown, and now Snyman and Hillman have gobbled up that gap, and in fact, I think Snyman is going to get by both of them. Oh, he's lifting.
Yeah, it's a very awkward situation. I don't think he had the clearance, and look at this. Trying to get the move done is Andrew Hillman, sensing the opportunity, smelling blood in the water for two drivers with slowdowns, and one driver having to slow down to take evasive maneuvers. This is sketchy stuff.
That's a lot of moves back and forth for Hillman as he's trying to figure out, does he want to try and use Snyman or Kaplan to punch the hole in the air? Kaplan will amazingly still hold that spot that he was in before, 4th place, but now it is Snyman behind him. Hillman moves in between himself and Messer as well, as Messer, with that failed attempt, falls to 7th instead of getting 4th.
So as that has settled down, I'm curious if we can maybe take a look at a replay to see everything that went down there, because there's a lot of stuff riding in that. Of course, the incident hang down into the Le Mans chicane. A little bit of sportsmanship going down there as the drivers lifted off, trying to avoid overtaking one another. And then as they headed their way back up onto the high bank, just a little bit of miscommunication, I think, was the deal there. The reason why Leon Snyman didn't try and thread the needle there is because both of those drivers, we saw them cut the course, they had slowdowns. Now, usually here at Daytona on iRacing, it is pretty much just a usual gentleman's code in a sense to run up against the wall if you do have some sort of slowdown penalty. I'm not sure if that gentleman's code was fully brought there into form. As we could see, the dive from Messer, no contact being made there from both drivers, having a hop, skip, and a jump across the track. Messer slamming his shock absorbers over the curb. As we take a look, trying to get the move done there was Leon Snyman, and you can see just not feeling comfortable enough to try and thread the needle, and Andrew Hillman certainly did. He tried to get the move done, but I think he just lifted a little bit to give himself the insurance, and Leon Snyman, using that draft that he got from that car right up in front to build the speed once more, was able to go side by side. As you can see, Hillman just kind of ping-ponging around the track, not really sure what to do there. He eventually settled back down. That was really frenetic stuff there, as it hasn't stopped. Leon Snyman currently trying to apply some pressure to John Kaplan in this fight for 4th.
Yeah, I think Kaplan got a fair bit lucky on that one, that he had a couple hesitant drivers trying to approach him from behind, and that's allowed him to hold on to P4. But yeah, like you said, they're not just joined by those two, but now Birkenstock is in there, Aguirre, and that is it. I think 2 extra. I thought Keith Marcuson was maybe in that group. It looks like he has not quite reached them. So 4th place is grown out to a battle between 6 different cars here as we just reached the first quarter mark of this final 2-hour race, which means it's time to take a mention of Princess Cruises, which continue as our PCA Sim Racing title sponsor for 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places they visit, and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Treffin at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on the screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. I think maybe Kaplan might be under a bit more pressure here. The bright pink car of Leon Snyman goes around the outside. Sometimes you can see a driver outbrakes the driver on the inside with that longer run, and that is exactly what the 993 has done. He takes P4.
Yeah, so Snyman getting that move done. It's been a good drive for that driver of the pink machine so far. We said that he's off the back of the win last time out in very different conditions, a little bit farther north here at Road Atlanta there in Braselton, Georgia. Of course, the scorching hot track temperatures, not something these drivers are having to worry about here at Daytona, not anywhere near as much. If we had those same temperatures that we saw at Road Atlanta, I'm pretty sure Lake Lloyd there on the infield right next to the super stretch would have probably evaporated off. Snyman, though, still looking to end this season off on a high note. I think back-to-back wins would be exactly what the doctor ordered.
Big look from Hillman on John Kaplan. So John's not out of the water quite yet. He's still got lots of pressure from behind. And Vernon Messer would certainly like to probably get another go at John after his last failed attempt. Let's see if there's a move from Hillman coming into the bus stop. Nope, John is going to cover him off just enough to dissuade him, as he wasn't close enough anyway, so they will stay single file through Le Mans one more time. This is all happening well behind our top two leaders. Leon Snyman, I think about 8 seconds behind Justin Carney, 6 seconds behind Justin Carney, 8 seconds behind Brad Dunn, it appears.
So Brad Dunn checking out now with a huge gap between himself and Justin Carney. Harpreet Beth now being able to reel it in. I wonder what the deal has been there for Carney. Was it an extra mistake out there? Was it potentially that damage starting to hurt him? If he loses out on even more time and potentially loses out on second to Harpreet Beth, we will get our answer. Thankfully, though, we are getting up to those first round of pit stops in the not-too-distant future here, Joe. So, gotta wonder, if you're Justin Carney in this situation, if it's the damage that's causing him to lose that time, we'll just go out on an if in this situation. If it's the damage that's causing him to just lead tenths of seconds lap after lap, would you maybe consider using that quick repair in this this first stop?
I think he has to. I think he's got to use that safety net because, like you said, he's clearly losing time. And I would wager that it was that contact that is costing him, because he easily stayed with Brad Dunn and even passed him at one point in the first part. So anybody who was hoping to break this race up into even quarters with that 3-stop strategy, haven't seen them pit yet, it looks like. Although Gary Schenk, I think he was just in. So Gary Schenk may be doing that strategy. He has come in at the 30-minute mark here. Most drivers will still try to go as far as they can from what we've seen in the first 3 races, even if they can't make it to that hour and 20-minute mark to go. It behooves them to try to run as light a car as possible. So fill it, burn it all the way to the bottom, fill it all the way up, and then do the same thing again, take a little splash at the end. And theoretically, that should be the fastest way if you're doing the 2-stop, or 3-stop rather.
Yeah, now of course we have had to talk about the strategy at length throughout this show, but it does come with a very good benefit for us here in the booth. You know, I don't like the mathematical side of things. I still have bad flashbacks. I think I made a passing reference about this last week in the club class broadcast, how because of the wonderful way in which the 2 school districts I was a part of back in my education career, shall we say, were forcing me to take algebra year after year after year after year. Pretty much had to do it for the final third of my 7th grade year, the entirety of 8th grade. Then I was meant to be in geometry honors before they put me up as Harpreet Beth. Been able to jump his way up in a second as I'm sharing some algebra-related trauma. Beth getting the move done on Justin Carney. Carney not really fighting it at all. So you gotta wonder what the deal is with Justin Carney. What sort of lap times he's setting, how that car is feeling. This isn't the worst racetrack in the world to have any sort of aero damage, but you've got both ends of a very sharp sword. If you're losing out on time on the flat-out sections, you're done for here at Daytona. If you're losing out time in the twisty sections, you're done for here at Daytona. It's a track of two very big extremes, so if Justin Carney's car is not feeling good at either, he's done for.
He does have the slipstream, thankfully, so that's working out for him. Just heard Hillman mention he's pitting in. Looks like a couple people are, actually. Kaplan, just in front of him, also pitting in. And I saw Jack Stevenson, Sherry Lee have also just pitted, although Sherry Lee sped on the way out. So the 898 is going to have to serve a penalty, unfortunately. You got to watch out for that. Who was that? That was Hillman, who overshot his pit box. Valuable seconds ticking away as he had to back it up.
Now, we've talked at length about the pit strategy, but executing on pit lane is huge. Not only with that pit entry and that treacherous pit exit, but even down in the pit lane itself, as we just saw there. One small little overshoot, just missing your marks slightly there on pit lane can be disastrous. I don't think that'll be the last of that we see throughout this race, Joe. I would be rather stunned if we get through the entirety of this race with less than just a few pit lane troubles.
Yeah, we've already seen in the last two races a couple of speeding penalties on the way in because it's so tempting to try to maximize it, as Sherry is now off course and finding their way back on. Oh, as that was a bit of a sketchy rejoin, but thankfully nobody wound up in the wall. So more issues for the 898 car. I'm watching our leader to see. Yep, and I can report that Brad Dunn is going to be coming in. So Brad Dunn definitely on the three-stopper.
Oh, and Harpreet Bath and Justin Carney following in as well. Will everybody else follow in suit? Looking at Leon Snyman, don't see any indications that he's going to peel it into pit lane here. I think he may be staying out. No, actually, he is dropping the anchors. Yeah, I could just barely see. I started to see that car slow down, and I knew exactly what the deal was there. Brad Dunn first to hit his marks. Everybody in the top 7 pulling into pit lane.
I am not surprised at all that Ken Eskridge is one of the few to stay out. Now, I think even if he makes it around, he still has to go a full other lap to be able to make this a two-stopper. But yeah, very obviously that everybody's going 10/10 behind him, as pretty much the entire field has now pitted. Lisa Eskridge notwithstanding, as she is not pitted in yet. So we might only have 2 holdouts to try and go on the daunting 2-stop strategy. Brad Dunn returns to the track, and he will not lose any sort of positions. Bath stays ahead of Carney as well in their pit stops, although I think Carney has lost a little bit of that slipstream, so he maybe was a tiny bit slower than Bath at some point in that sequence.
Yeah, so everybody trying to blend out there on the racetrack with their pit stops done and dusted. The first pit stop done and dusted. Still a few more left for these drivers to try and tackle here. But one thing that I do want to raise, Joe, you mentioned Ken and Lisa Eskridge staying out there on the racetrack, going for an alternate strategy. Those two, at the start of the season, way back when in January, were able to get through that entire season-opening 1-hour race down there in Mexico City without a single pit stop throughout the entirety of it. That still sticks out in my head, and this is coming from somebody who usually doesn't remember where he put his keys and doesn't even remember what he had for dinner last night. But I do remember that. It was such a standout performance. Now, very different circumstances here, very different racetrack. The atmosphere is a heck of a lot thicker, so I don't think he can pull off that same sort of fuel-saving strategy. But Eskridge's, both of them, Ken and Lisa, have been able to pull some fantastic fuel-saving strategies throughout this season. Ken now comes down pit lane at the end of that extra lap, but at the start of this race, in the first pit cycle, 1 extra lap can make a world of difference come time for the end.
And you can see the timer still hasn't gone by a minute 20, but by the time he emerges, or an hour 20 rather, by the time he emerges, he'll have less than that time left to go. So theoretically, he could still get to the needed number. It's just right on the bubble whether or not he can make that stick. Lisa Eskridge, who is still on the lead lap, I think is going to be a bit more comfortable on that, as she probably will lose at least one lap, it looks like, based on the pace that we're seeing so far. And yeah, she is just coming in as we see Ken heading on out. So that means that once Lisa emerges, that is everybody having taken their pit stops. We get more action coming down into turn 1, and that is Markussen versus Jones, and somebody spinning off to the outside behind them. Trying to make out who that was. That was Chris Drankovic. Oh, he's been having a miserable day.
And it's off into turn 1 once again, so probably dove it off into the runoff area just to avoid hitting that same barrier. Now you can just see very quick there, too quick, and the problem with turn 1 here at Daytona is the track falls away from you. You can see it a little bit there from that camera angle that we had right before we cut away from that replay to see this side-by-side battling involved with David Santry, but it just falls away from you as you go a little bit farther wide. So if you overshoot that turn even by a couple of miles an hour, it's going to make it seem like you nearly end up in the Atlantic Ocean by the time you're done there.
Big look up the inside. John Kaplan wants a spot from Snyman. No dice. Leon managing to put himself ahead of the 526, and they've still got Hillman, who we ride on board with now, chasing from behind. Also, to your question earlier, Justin Carney did indeed take his spare car, and he very quickly passed Bath for that second place and is starting to run away. I think that was a good call on the part of Justin, because it looks like his renewed pace is helping tremendously.
Yeah, I figured that would be the really only rational decision, although there would be some sort of understanding if he decided to not take it, just want to have that extra line of defense in his back pocket a little bit later on. But it was really the difference between kind of like, prevent your death by 1,000 cuts by making sure that a guillotine can't cut your head off later on. So I think Justin Carney made the smart call. You can't just, run everything so conservative here in this race in the belief that a falling anvil may come down later. So Justin Carney making the smart call. Now going to look to try and make up the time. Now it is a huge amount of time that he has to make up, 10.5 seconds at the moment between he and Brad Dunn, but we've still got an hour and 17 minutes left to go here in this race. The Grand, that's a tough challenge, but if anyone's going to try and take it, I think Justin Carney has the machine.
I watched the lap times. The last time he was 0.2 slower than Dunn, but I think he also made a pass at the start of the lap, so that would have slowed him down slightly. We were watching Kaplan versus Hillman as we jumped back up to Carney and Bath now through the Le Mans chicane. And we'll get a read on their lap times here shortly, as there's not much more to go. In fact, Brad Dunn's just coming up towards the tri-oval right now, so we'll get his first. And he ran a 46.4, which is a little slower than Carney's previous lap. So let's see what Carney did now that he was in clear air, pushing hard. He'll cross the line, and this is a 46.2. So yes, 0.2 chopped down. Like you said, Ron, it's a long race still. All he has to do is keep the pace up and not make mistakes like that as he slides off of turn 1. Harpreet thinks about trying to get involved, but reconsiders.
Yeah, no, I don't think that would have been the best of strategies. These drivers do have to keep their eyes focused in multiple areas, kind of just go throughout this next stage of the race like a lizard, looking at 16 different things at once. You gotta consider Brad Dunn trying to reel him in. Right now, that gap kind of plateauing. It's not going up anymore, but it's not going down either, and these drivers getting involved in their own little battles is not helping out their case. The one car that is getting involved into this is the 4th place runner of Leon Snyman. He's not there yet. Emphasis on yet, though. You can see him there. That is probably the only time that a baby pink race car is truly ominous.
Yeah, in fact, his latest lap was quicker than both P1 and P2. So was Bath's most recent lap. Harpreet, I think, using that slipstream to great effect, riding behind Carney, but Snyman didn't have that. So Leon, good catch on that, Ron. He is looking very, very quick. This is Hillman versus Kaplan once again for P5. Hillman already having survived an attack earlier Did not take his spare car, so he didn't get any damage from that incident, thankfully, or at least none that seems to be affecting his pace. And he just rides the coattails of John Kaplan, at least for now, even though he's not close enough to try and attack. He's being pulled along nicely.
Yeah, so sitting in the coattails, enjoying that slipstream, and just kind of treating it like a little tow at the moment. It's like Marty McFly grabbing onto the truck on a skateboard as he runs his way around town. That's pretty much what we've got going on right now, but I don't think either of these drivers will go back into the Neolithic period if they end up hitting 88 miles an hour. Maybe they'll end up racing in the first ever Daytona 500 back in 1959. That would be... maybe that would be an odd little discussion that we can bring up on some broadcasts in Series 16. What would you do if you could go back in time?
Oh, gosh. That'd be a tough one. Well, I would use some foresight to try and defend some of the attacks here that Hillman is starting to put on. He's looking a little more antsy now, trying to dive through turn 6, but that one doesn't work out for him. Carney, by the way, another 10th taken off of Brad Dunn. So again, chipping away little bit by little bit. And he once again looks like he is dropping Bath. His mistake into turn 1 definitely allowed Harpreet to catch him back up. But now that 915 is well out of the slipstream.
You know, I always make these comparisons here, just relating to how things go throughout this race, and I'll make it once more here. It's one of my kind of motifs here to talk about these gaps and how these drivers can manage it. It's like filing your nails, trying to trim up your nails. You don't want to try and cut your nails off with a chainsaw, because that's how accidents happen. You just go about it methodically with a nail clipper and a nail file, and you can get the desired effect. That's what Justin Carney's doing right now. He's not trying to hack away at that 9.5 second gap with a chainsaw. He's just going about methodically, making up that time. Let's also prevent something that happened in that first stint when he smacked that unforgiving concrete wall on the inside of turn number 1. That wall has very little give. Doesn't matter whether you're in iRacing or in real life. Concrete is concrete. That doesn't really work out for anything other than something that can stop something heading your way. So for Justin Carney, wants to just try and keep it clean, keep it smooth out there on the racetrack, and feeling less pressure from Harpreet Bath, who just lost it off into the West Horseshoe. That's given P3 to Snyman, and he's dropped down outside the top 5.
And that was all of his own doing. Watch the replay here. Coming through the kink, a little bit wide. That spins the car, and that was a heavy hit into the Armco. So the nose of the car, yeah, it looks pretty second rate here. He is going to be slow in a straight line. That's not going to be fun because he still has a long way to get to the end of this stint.
So at this point, will he even want to make it to the end of this stint? He's not too far into it, so you know it would suck either way to have to cut your losses and come down pit lane. But I'm not sure if there's any other option. That front end is quite badly smushed in. It looks like somebody trying to work with clay and accidentally dropping the mug that they're making directly on the ground. It's even a little bit of rear end damage on that car as well. Got to be driving around like a trash bag full of mango pulp. And in terms of the straight line pace, you can forget about it. Vernon Messer was just able to get a move done on him as if Harpreet Bath was sitting still, heading down that back flat out left. He stays out for another lap. At this point, though, it is damage limitation for Harpreet. Unfortunate. That's such a shame. He was put together a fantastic drive, running firmly in the podium spots with a good pace there. I think the only driver that would have maybe upset him in that regard was Leon Snyman, but either way, would have still been a good night. Unfortunately, that good night looks like it's come to a conclusion, and now he's going to just barely tread above water to hold on to his spot in the top 10.
Gotta be so frustrating as we come back to Kaplan versus Hillman. This has been fun to watch, but Kaplan retains that P4. Hillman still trying to put the pressure on as they return to the oval portion once again. I think for Harpreet Bath, just to touch on that, that was a third place pretty much thrown away. Unless something amazing happens, I can't see him really managing to recover that because he's lost a lot of time to those ahead of him in that one incident. But it also frees up Justin Carney in a huge way because he really doesn't have anybody anywhere near him behind to try and ride with him. And coming through the bus stop chicane, I gotta say, that was a pretty good slice through there by John Kaplan. I feel like Hillman lost a fair chunk just in that one corner.
Yeah, full commitment as he headed his way off through the Le Mans chicane. I made the comparison to the bus stop at Watkins Glen. I think they're two very similar turns in many different reasons. The structure of the turn, the history surrounding both of those tracks, both in the other world of sports cars and NASCARs. Come to think of it, as Harpreet Beth actually filed down pit lane here. So we were wondering whether or not he was going to cut his losses. I think that was a pretty smart call just to pull it into pit lane. The damage had already been done. May as well just head into the final hour and 9 minutes of this race with a clean sheet of paper. Hopefully he clicked the box there to actually take that fast repair, or whether or not he accidentally took it on that first pit stop. If he has to be stopped there for the entire time to get that car brought up to snuff, he has not. So that works out well. Harpreet Beth able to go through the pit stop. And look at Keith Markinson getting a move done on Jonathan Sportis. Didn't expect that heading into one.
Wow, great move. And that trio now, well, look at that, down to the inside of the 07-6, having to play defense. Keith Markinson not feeling terribly secure despite making that great move. So interesting note on Bath. You talked about whether or not he had taken the free repair earlier. He did not. But he also didn't take the free repair in this pit stop. So he took the optional repairs, or at least some of them, and is back out onto the track. Now, remember, he had to take a little bit of fuel. He probably didn't have enough time. In fact, I guarantee you he didn't have time to change tires in that. And this doesn't change the strategy too much. He still needs one more stop. We knew he was going to do a 3-stop based on where his first one came out. But he is going to be running a heavier car. That's really the big thing that is the blow to him in that one. And he might have to overtake a few slower cars since he's now going to be amongst those whose pace might be off of his. But he still retains that free repair if he needs it. And we'll see if that winds up being crucial as we once again join the likes of Kaplan and Hillman trying to decide the first spot off of the podium. And nope, we are turning over to Adam Holland in the meantime. Davy Jones is playing big defense down into turn 1 while he also follows Jeffrey Block.
Ooh, that's very wide for the lap car right behind, but Dave Jones all over the back trying to get this move done on Jeffrey Block. As you can see, Adam Holland hop, skipping a jump as he headed his way all through 2 and 3, hitting that inside curb and popping up the inside tires, flying that machine like a kite in the 144 machine, currently holding on to 12th, trying to find any way in the book to get a move done here on Dave Jones before Jones jumps in front of Jeffrey Block. Gotta wonder who's going to be the first to shoot in this. Will it be Dave Jones getting the move done on Block? Will it be Adam Holland going for the move on Dave Jones? Will they just remain in this little pack here? I always say in these draft-heavy races where the fuel saving, or even the draft talking about, at the end of one of these races, trying to see who can get the win and who can get the moves to happen, you gotta pick and choose your battles, and the phrase teamwork makes the dream work usually pops up here. Now, these drivers are not teammates, so there's still a little bit of cooperation that has to go down. These drivers just saying, okay, look, we're holding on to some all right spots right now. In the case of Jeffrey Block, the final car inside the top 10. In the case of Jones and Holland, the first 2 out of it. They're holding on to good positions right now. This would be a good haul of points to end this season off, and a nice little note to end off Series 15 heading into the summer break. So they're not going to battle too hard, I don't think. They're maybe just going to keep their nose fully locked on that grindstone and just try and see through the end of this stint. There's still a long way left to go until these drivers have to eyeball another round of pit stops.
An update on the Bath story. Harpreet pitted again as we're going to go wheel to wheel down into turn 1. Jones around the outside of Block. Oh, that leaves him vulnerable. And Adam Holland picks his pocket easy as you please. The 144 takes 11th spot with that one. But yeah, for some reason, Harpreet visited for a second lap in a row And did he actually take his, let me see if he took the spare car this time. Yes, he took the spare car. I guess the repairs were not enough. And now he's going to be on a 4-stop strategy, unfortunately. So his bad day has gotten worse.
Yeah, now I was going to say, I don't think there is any crew in the world that would be able to get that car repaired fully in 12 seconds. That was, I mean, if that worked, that would be astonishing, but I don't think either a crew at like a Jiffy Lube or a Meineke would be able to make that work, as Adam Holland, spinning his way out of turn number 7, back up onto the high banks, just looped it as he tried to apply the power. I think the outside curb may have fully sent him around, but Adam Holland dropping out of that 3-car battle. Now there are only 2, Jeffrey Block and Dave Jones in 10th and 11th as Holland dropped it. It wasn't even the curb, it was just as he headed his way through the turn and looping it around. Easy as done.
And the only thing that surprises me is we're nearly an hour in, and as far as I can recall, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Ron, that's the first spin we've seen at turn 6. Yesterday, we had probably a good dozen of them over the course of the 2-hour race. And it was spread all throughout. It was the bane of the existence of the drivers last night. Tonight, they've been handling it surprisingly well.
Yeah, they have coped with the challenge fantastically. Haven't seen really, I mean, even just looking at this race broadly speaking, we haven't had too many incidents. We've seen a couple of tense moments, a couple of drivers running into trouble, and a few single-car incidents. But in terms of actual car-to-car contact, it has been very minimal. I want to give the love towards these drivers, that is most certainly due. They've kept it clean a lot throughout this season. Of course, here in the PCA Challenge class, lots of these drivers still getting the opportunity to learn the ropes in the sim and try and build up their speed, build up their talent behind their sim brakes, and also have a heck of a lot of fun in the process. And these drivers doing it right now. And even at this racetrack, which is a known quantity, it's still a very, very tough ride. There is the reason why the Daytona 24 is considered one of the toughest 24-hour endurance races of them all. I mean, they're all tough, but Daytona has its own little raft of challenges. Everybody has hundreds of laps running around here, either running around here or seeing cars run around here. But every single time you run around this place, there's still a left hook that's going to end up either whacking your face or going to have to get blocked by your own fist.
It is certainly a deceiving track. It looks like it should be so simple from the layout, but yeah, it seems to catch you out at the strangest of moments, either through lack of focus or just lack of skill, as Hillman is going to try to use his skills to go around Kaplan once again. Ever since he got overtaken by John, he seems to want this spot back, but he goes way too wide down to turn 1. He's got to watch out for Vernon Messer, who's now caught him back up. The 56, unable to pass now, but he's going to have maybe an opportunity if he uses the slipstream right.
So still not done and dusted in that battle. These drivers, as they near that halfway mark, I think they've already learned a lot, but there's still some questions that haven't been answered yet that I'm not sure if these drivers will get answers to until they get into the final few moments of this race. Primarily one, which is something I think we just touched on a little bit 1 week ago together here, Joe. Talking about the overtaking opportunities, obviously turn 1 a good spot to make it happen. The bus stop chicane a good area as well, but where are these drivers really going to go for the moves the most? We talk about those heavy braking zones and how good of a spot it is to try and get a move done. We've already seen many examples, in fact, of drivers going for some moves there and not having it end too well. So it may seem like the best slam dunk opportunity of them all, but there's still inherent risk when it comes to it all. So gotta just wonder whether it's going to come down fully to driver preference or whether they're a bit unified in terms of, okay, this turn, whether it be turn 1 or the bus stop, is a real good spot to make a move done in these cars. Everywhere else, you're kind of asking for trouble. So that's one thing that I'll be very interested in seeing get answered as we get towards the end of this race.
But I would counter that the bus stop usually isn't the best place to try and make a pass. Typically,
oh, for sure.
If you go for an overtake, it's just such a quick entry in there, even though it's got heavy braking. that it can often wind up going poorly for both drivers, as we saw earlier today, where they wound up having to cut the course down to the inside of Lisa Eskridge. Vernon Messer does not get the ideal line and loses some time. But that said, we had a last lap pass in last night's race for a decisive position. I think it was for second as they came up to the bus stop chicane. And that was after we were kind of wondering if the driver was going to wait for a snipe at the end. Oh, there's a look up the inside once again from Hillman, but still unable to dethrone Kaplan off of that fourth place. So it is possible. Typically, I think, if you ask me, you're going to see drivers wait until out of the Le Mans chicane. They'll try and launch, use the slipstream, snipe it right at the end. But Hillman, who seems to have a fire lit under him, is going to illustrate the possibility of passing down into this backstretch chicane, or he's going to back out and show you just how tricky it is to try and be brave enough to make it work.
Yeah, in that case I was definitely outlining the bus stop as a kind of like fill-in example, just kind of explaining what the thought process will be for these drivers as we get towards the end. I know I personally wouldn't want to go for a move heading off into the bus stop. I can't even count the amount of times that I've seen drivers attempt to go for a move there and have it end in some sort of disaster. Turn one, not a bed of roses either, but you really just want to try and make hay while the sun is shining and get the moves done in the draft. Even though the draft in these Porsche 911 GT3 machines, not exactly the strongest in the world. You know, they hold their own when it comes to the draft. That presents good fuel-saving opportunities that these drivers are still having to consider in this middle stint. But on the whole, in terms of overtakes, I think just utilizing those draft opportunities has got to be key.
Without a doubt. And if you want a good opportunity to go see the world, why not check out Princess Cruises? Because they are once again the PCA Sim Racing title sponsor for 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places they visit, and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Trefford at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on the screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA Travel Concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. All right, this has been a fun one between the 14 and the 526. He's definitely not as close as he was before. Messer, after he kind of got held up by a bit of lap traffic, is trying to get back into it. But Hillman has been wanting to try and get by John lap after lap. Just can't seem to make it stick. He's definitely not going to be close enough this time, as you see the gap between them coming up to the tri-oval. And they'll look for that brake marker down into turn 1, where he'll no doubt hope to gain some of that time back. In fact, yeah, he closes in pretty significantly. Look at that, 14. Very brave on the brakes, maybe a bit too brave as the car gets loose on the way out, and he has to gather it back up. So whatever he gained, he has now lost back on corner exit. And again, this is all just for 4th place. They are behind Leon Snyman, who's left them in the dust by about 4.4 seconds. Justin Carney, who's been trying to reel back in Dunn, unfortunately has not really done so in a significant way. He is still about 9 to 10 seconds behind Brad Dunn, and hasn't seemed to be consistent enough to try and gun him down. Joe Birkenstock, in the meantime, has a little bit of a spin. Thankfully winds up off the course through the International Horseshoe, although that return may be worthy of an unsafe re-entry penalty. We'll see what the stewards say about that one, Ron.
Yeah, unfortunately, I believe that was Ken Eskridge that was the first driver to arrive at the scene of that near accident. Nearly stepped on Lego as he headed his way off into the International Horseshoe. That was a softball. I had to swing at that one. But yeah, I think race control probably going to have a look at it. It's the problem with this racetrack, trying to find an opportunity to rejoin. It's usually just a relentless, never-ending line of cars. I'm sure you've gotten to see many more instances of this than myself. A driver stopped there on the side of the road after a self-spin, and just having to wait there for what feels like 1,000 years waiting for that pack of cars to come around. Remember one time even being in race control, and the series admin actually had a spin. It was stopped there on the side of the track for, I think, about 45 seconds, waiting to rejoin the track, because it was just a never-ending line of cars. And me and the race director were in race control, and you could hear the cringe coming through our voices as we were warning the cars about that car stopped out there on the racetrack. It's such a shame to see those drivers run into troubles, but sometimes those unsafe rejoins, I know it gives us some odd opportunities to make some odd squeaks. I've turned into an opera singer sometimes, seeing those drivers rejoin right in the path of oncoming traffic, but unfortunate to see that go down there, heading off into the horseshoe. Jump back to the battle, though. This is for John Kaplan and Andrew Hillman, P4 and 5 now. A little bit of side-by-side racing as they head their way out of the West Horseshoe off into turn number 6. Now, we saw this turn only claim one victim here, which is a bit surprising. Pretty much every aspect about that turn, at least from my own experience, is so unbelievably awkward. It's like I'm actively being tased every single time I drive through it.
Yeah, it feels a little bit off camber. You got to get the throttle down. There's another big look. Hillman, he's going to go for it once again. This time he's going to try and keep his nose in there, but he backs out at the last moment. Kaplan himself being brave, trusting that Hillman is not going to turn him into the corner. But that bravery has allowed John Kaplan to hold on to this P4 for another time around.
Oh, and it's so side by side, just a tiny bit of overlap heading off there into the bus stop. I said the whole thing about feeling like I was being tased. That's what it's like in the commentary booth, seeing those drivers go side by side in there. One small mistake and it ends in tears. As much as turn 1 is an awkward spot to try and make something work, especially with the tightened up track limits through there, iRacing tightening those up a couple of seasons ago, it is still a far better spot to make a move stick than off through the bus stop. Not only is the track itself narrower through there, through the Le Mans chicane, I kept calling it the bus stop there, all through the Le Mans chicane, the track itself is not only narrower, the racing surface itself is very narrow too. I've often made this mistake saying, oh yeah, it's just the track being narrow. Sometimes that's not the case. It's just the area of the track that is realistically able to be driven around is tough. You can go side by side through there, but you're going to be stuck in the dirty part of the racetrack off through the marbles, and your car is just going to have no grip at all if you run through there. But forget the driver's going for a move heading off into that Le Mans chicane, because Andrew Hillman, I don't think is crossing off any parts of this racetrack as a spot to make something work. You can see him dart in and out about 9 times as he headed his way out of the West Horseshoe off into turn number 6. If there's any driver in this field that has a little bit of anger, for lack of a better term, it is Hillman.
He's doing it again. This time he backs out way earlier. And yeah, I don't know what the urgency is that he feels the need to get by so soon. Did Justin Carney have a problem? So we got a replay here. And, oh no, did he find the wall? Yes, he did! We had missed that. Leon Snyman has moved up into second. Justin Carney is, I think, getting ready to come back into pit lane potentially. No, he's actually staying out for another round. But he's going to be even slower than he was before. And now he doesn't have his free repair to rely on. This was the downfall we were talking about, that you make yourself vulnerable. In fact, these two are coming upon Justin right now. That's how much time he has lost. John Kaplan about to be promoted up onto the podium. Oh, if he can hold on and keep Hillman behind him at least. Hillman snatches it up down through the International Horseshoe. He's been trying lap after lap, and just as quick as you like, he finds that one chance where John goes too wide and Andrew is suddenly up into 4th. Let's see how easily they go by Justin Carney, because they're getting ready to head back up on the banking again.
Yeah, that car is going to be a sitting duck. The one saving grace for Justin Carney is the fact that hit was pretty much square on the front end. Probably not a major suspension damage done to that car, maybe just pushing the wheels just a teeny tiny bit back. I mein, granted, that car is not driving factory fresh no matter how you slice it, but solely bodywork damage, which is its own little curse here, heading down these flat-out sections on the back end of the racetrack. his car is going to be painfully slow. You can see that gap close up by about a half a second alone, heading down into the Le Mans chicane. By the time they head into turn 1, my bet is that Carney is going to be behind Kaplan.
We should be seeing some pit stops soon here. And I guess the good news for Carney is if he wants to stop, he could, and he wouldn't be that much different than before. It'd just be maybe a couple laps different from those around him in terms of pit stops, and shouldn't hurt him fuel-wise. Hillman has not run away from Kaplan. Vernon Messer brought in by all that battling, and I am shocked that they did not catch Carney, because I'm pretty sure he's missing a significant bit of bodywork on the front. Let's see. Yeah, you look at that. He should probably be a complete parachute in a straight line.
I'm not even sure if calling his car a parachute is doing it justice. It's like dragging an anchor through asphalt. It is unbelievable. These Porsche 911 GT3 cars punch a rather big hole in the air. Now, in the grander scheme of GT3 cars here on iRacing, it's probably not the biggest hole punch, but it's still on the bigger end. So the fact that even with the missing front bumper and a hood that is about as crinkled as you can imagine, Hillman going for the move heading off into turn number 7, that's actually going to stack up the field behind and give Carney a slight sense of reprieve, but that's not going to last for long, as Andrew Hillman, John Kaplan, and Vernon Messer are going to chew him up and spit him out here sooner rather than later.
I think Hillman's got to be careful. He does not want to get a penalty trying to pass a car that theoretically should be pretty easy to pass here at some point. He should have a lot more speed than that 292 machine, and he does not want to back himself up into Kaplan and Messer as well either. But the driver who started in 11th, who's already made up a lot of spots, is looking at maybe getting on the podium. Let's see who pits in this time by, as I think we're getting close to where those who pitted early probably will be taken. And indeed, as I say that, John Kaplan decides now's the time to go in.
So good call from Kaplan, maybe going to gain a bit of time over his contemporary rivals, who are still stuck behind this slow car of Justin Carney. Haven't been able to get the move done. The problem is with Andrew Hillman, I think he's been a bit too trigger happy in this stage of the race. He's been going for the moves pretty much every single time one of the opportunities presents itself, instead of being a bit more methodical in the approach, thinking, okay, if I can just keep it right to the back of him, I'll be able to blow his doors off heading down into the Le Mans chicane. He's been going for it lap after lap into turn number 7, and in the times where he hasn't dived down the inside, he's been really darty, which has just been sacrificing his approach. Now we're going to see him once again trying to attack, heading off into this turn, cutting off a little bit there. 3 cars stack up into the turn. I think this is Hillman's best opportunity yet. If he doesn't get this move done here, you got to wonder exactly how much time these drivers will lose and how much time John Kaplan may gain.
You can see from on board Messer, Hillman is pretty close. In fact, this is the closest he's been, I think, since they caught up to this car. Could try and outbrake him, because that seems to be where he's strong in a lot of these parts. In fact, yes, he is going to just fly by him, and he is now up into 3rd with that move as they got a car spun. That was a lapped car, thankfully all able to avoid. That was Sherry Lee. We have had a few drivers stop. Santry in and amongst them. Dave Jones also pitted. This is what put Sherry Lee in that strange position. And again, it is those nasty curbs.
And keep an eye on this field as they approach. Hey, oh golly, that nearly ended in a multi-car accident. Hillman coming down pit lane, both to put a little bit more fuel in that car to make it the final 46 minutes, and potentially to change his pants after that close quarters moment heading out of Le Mans chicane.
Yeah, I would think so. So Carney now finds him. Yeah, Carney now finds himself in P3. As, do we have another stopper? Yeah, Andrew Hillman. Okay, so Andrew Hillman did all that work to try and pass by, and then decided it's time to take his pit stop. Where does he come out? Because it was John Kaplan, remember, that he was racing with. And if he spent too much time fiddling about and trying to pass by Carney, then of course Kaplan could pull the undercut on him. In the meantime, Messer is the latest to try to make this stick. He's going to go the long way around through turn 6, and in fact, he does it. Wow. Haven't seen that one yet today.
Yeah, there's a very good reason why. Overtakes heading down into that turn are usually just so unbelievably tough. As Andrew Hillman, I could hear that noise coming from you, Joe. I think we spotted it at roughly the same time.
Yeah.
He is still down in pit lane. Is that a penalty that he's picked up?
I don't think so. I think this is repairs. Because remember, he had a little bit of contact earlier, but I think that was before his first pit stop, wasn't it? I'm trying to recall.
I don't recall. Brad Dunn has actually come into the pits just now, so we'll be able to tune that a bit. I wonder, maybe, was there some like registered netcode contact potentially with Lee in that spin?
That could be it, yeah. But it's too long for a speeding penalty because that's an extra 30 seconds. So, and I'm checking his entry. Yeah, he definitely didn't speed into pit lane. I will say, I'm pretty sure he missed his box. Yeah, he missed his box by a long ways. Had to back up twice. But that doesn't account for an extra 52 seconds, it looks like.
Yeah, see, that is bizarre. I'm gonna not fully close the door on that being some sort of pit lane violation, maybe hurting him out there. Could have been essentially like a pit lane penalty itself, maybe speeding. That's
Now that would be only 30 seconds usually. So
I thought that was on the 40-second end. My apologies there, but you know, it's befuddling either way. It's like a ghost story that we have, the ghost penalty, or the ghost of a falling anvil coming down on his head. Unfortunate either way.
Okay then. Well, Dunn emerges after his pit stop, and we saw him in there in second. But Kent Eskridge obviously still needs to come in and pit, and he's trying to make it to that 40-minute to go mark. Leon Snyman emerges in fourth, and we haven't really talked about this driver, Les Carmichael. Oh, that's why he hasn't pitted yet, so he still owes us a pit stop. So that's why he is sitting in third. I guess Vernon Messer will be promoted up once the pit sequence wraps itself up here.
As we were following some of those drivers peeling out of the pits, I did see a driver actually spin heading out of turn number 6 and 7, so that turn claiming yet another victim is John Kaplan closing up on Justin Carney heading out of that same section. Kaplan going to be able to pull ahead as they head their way off through Oval 1 and 2 here on the Roval. Now I got to wonder whether Justin Carney's going to look to fight back heading into the Le Mans chicane. He closes up that gap. He's still right in the slipstream. Not going to try and challenge him off into the turn. I think that is smart and collected stuff from Justin Carney. Still trying to get his bearings straight. That car looks to be, it's still slightly dented in.
Yeah, but they at least replaced the clip on the front, so he's got that going for him.
Looking prettier.
Yeah, it should hopefully be somewhat quicker in a straight line. Les Carmichael now finally serving his pit stop, so that should return things to mostly back to normal. I think the big one is how far will Kent Eskridge go, and he's well past the pit entry, so once he gets back around to the pit entry here, I think he can pit this time if he so desires and still be out with enough time, with enough fuel to get to the finish from there. But everybody else has taken their stop and is committed to that three-stop strategy. Where is Lisa, though? Because I know she was joining Ken on that strategy. She is 22nd. Okay. And she pitted 7 laps ago, so she's got an extra stop in there anyway. She'll have to do another one.
Yeah, and this is a little change that has been brought in. Of course, the extra pit stops that these drivers have had to contend with here in the season finale with the double-length final race. I like this. I always like talking about pit strategy and what these drivers can do. It just adds in a little bit of extra spice into these races, as Ken Eskridge has now pulled it into pit lane. This will give the race lead back to Brad Dunn. Now, I misspoke a bit earlier on in this broadcast. I'll throw my hands up and admit it. I said that Brad Dunn had grabbed his 4th pole this season. It's actually his third pole this season that he grabbed here, looking for his fourth win and his first since Long Beach. I think if he can get that done, that would be pretty much just the perfect way to cap this campaign off. And kind of similar shades to what we saw go down in the club class just 1 week ago here on RaceSpotTV, where after a dominant first half of the season for your eventual champion of Grant McKesh, it was struggling just a teeny tiny bit in the second half of the season, then finally came to form and ended up winning that season finale along with the championship. So Brad Dunn looking to follow in suit.
Ken Eskridge has gotten back on track. Looks like the gap, for those curious, right now, at least after the pit stop, 28.5 seconds up to the leader, Brad Dunn. So, with Brad being currently the leader on the 3-stop strategy, if he can get in and out and not lose those 28 seconds or more, if Ken runs repeatedly slower than Brad and loses more time, then Brad will obviously take the win. But Brad has to have a good in and out, and I think from what we saw in last night's race, it was about 10 seconds for most of the drivers that they needed on fuel. There were a few that were able to cut it down as far as, I think, 7 seconds on a very short stop. But I know our eventual winner said that he was quite tight on fuel with the 10 seconds, so I don't think Brad needs to necessarily try and play it risky, because so far so good, and frankly, he's got an 18-second lead over Leon Snyman after all the drama for his rivals.
And as we continue to talk about the strategy and all the different permutations running through these drivers' minds, there's a thought that just occurred to me a few moments ago, Joe. Do us commentators just enjoy seeing these drivers be in a world of trouble out there? Whether it be a challenging track conditions, or these racers having to be challenged with a intriguing pitch strategy, we always enjoy it as the drivers are just in a world of hurt out there, just trying to make everything work, juggling chainsaws. I feel like we're like the audience of, like, I don't know, we're like tuning into like the circus freak show in a way. Of course, I'm not calling these drivers freaks in any way, but we're enjoying these drivers like swallowing knives out there, and we're just in the audience eating our popcorn, having a great time.
I mean, who wants to see somebody do the easy puzzle that's 10 pieces? You want to give them 1,000 pieces and then watch and see how they handle the challenge. And I think that's kind of how I compare it out here. Is I want to see drivers have to work for it. I want to see them prove themselves. And they've definitely done that with this extra hour added on to the finale. Let's see what Keith Marcuson can do with Adam Holland, who would have been farther up the order, but now he's been dropping one more because Marcuson absolutely mugged him down into the International Horseshoe.
And a very slick move there, commanding stuff, heading off into the turn. Marcuson, who's been really up and down the field like Otis Elevator, but he's been able to put on a good drive, holding on to 10th at the moment here in this race with 37 minutes left to go. Now, usually in these races, we would have to worry about the pit stops. We'd have to worry about a lot of stuff. Not really having to worry about that for most of the field. These drivers having to change that mindset once more. It presents a whole different sort of attitude that these drivers have to take heading into these final few, what feels like the final few moments of this race. Still a lot can happen in the next 37 minutes, but compared to the 2 hours that we started off with, it feels like absolutely no time at all. I gotta wonder what is going to be the main battle to keep our eyes on for. I don't think Leon Steinman is going to fall off into the crutches of Vernon Messer or John Kaplan or anyone else right behind. I think that that battle for that final podium spot, though, could get intense, could get interesting. You got John Kaplan, who's shown a lot of grit so far in this race, and Justin Carney, who is looking to bounce back with a slightly wounded race car. We'll have to see if he'll have the pace to be able to make it work. And also, a little bit outside of that fight, Ken Eskridge currently holding on to 6th at the moment, trying to run that odd play call that he did, being a little bit delayed on the pit stops. Works out well for him so far, currently holding on to 6th.
And his lap times are pretty comparable to those around him. Brad Dunn last lap was a 46 flat. It was a 46.2 for Ken Eskridge, so only 0.2 off is not too shabby. And really the fastest car of that top group last time by was Vernon Messer at a 45.7. So you mentioned him and being a possible threat. I think he's too far away from Brad Dunn, but I don't think he's out of the hunt trying to chase down Snyman. This is Brad Dunn on your screen in the blue and white 241 right now. In fact, he's going to get a nice little pull from Andrew Hillman, who after his mysteriously long stop is currently running 15th and last on the lead lap.
And I briefly mentioned it a bit earlier on here in the show, but I do want to elaborate on this point. Of course, we let you all know that Series 16 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series will be kick-started on August the 26th. So there's a lot of time between now and the next time these drivers will hit the racetrack, either here in the Challenge class or any drivers that may be upgrading into some of the other divisions here in the PCA Sim Racing world. So either way you slice it, it is a long break between races. So it gives these drivers the opportunity to both reset, but for some drivers who maybe end this season off on a not very good note, they'll be thinking about the next time they hit the racetrack. I think our perspective here, Joe, as broadcasters kind of rings true. There's a saying in our business, you're only good as your last show. I know whenever I have a broadcast that I feel like I could have been a little bit sharper on, that always sits with me whenever I go to bed that night. And for drivers as well, it rings true also. So these competitors, they want to put a bit more importance and emphasis on getting a good result here. Side-by-side racing heading down the backstretch between Tim Taplin and Jack Stevenson. Taplin, we saw have a wild off-track moment through here a bit earlier on, showing their confidence, jumps his way up into 16th in that Alpine Mountain region number 25 car. But just to recap on the points, these drivers placing a lot of pressure on themselves just to get a good result here in the season finale.
And 4 months in sim racing terms is like an eternity too. We have to remember, real racing, you'll get some log gaps in there, but sim racing doesn't have an off season really. It just keeps kind of circulating all year round because, well, it's an indoor sport, so it can take part just about any time. So these drivers will have time to stew on it. I'm impressed with Tim Taplin in that move, frankly. He is up since the start of the race about 6 positions. And I thought he was just going to kind of hang back there because I thought I saw him making a lot of mistakes earlier in the race. I guess maybe I was looking at somebody else, or I was just getting the wrong impression, because the 25 car it is clearly jumping up bit by bit. We've only lost 2 cars, actually. Harpreet Bath and Chris Schuessler are the only retirements in this race. So starting 22nd, still 23 cars running, and he's made up at least half a dozen spots at this stage. He is unfortunately a lap down, as Brad Dunn, has not had it perfect. We missed a half spin here, and that cuts down the gap from 18 seconds down to 12. Leon Snyman gets a bit of a reprieve on what was a much bigger distance between he and the leader.
Yeah, so just a little reminder to Brad Dunn that not everybody is perfect here in this race. He's been flawless throughout, but that small little mistake reminding him that although this track is one that drivers feel confident on, the small little moments just remind these racers that the racing gods are still truly at their control. So, one kind of thing that I talk about a lot in common combinations of races, Joe, is the sense of overconfidence. Some of the leagues that I get the opportunity to cover here, especially here on RaceSpot, are ones where there's a pretty steady stream of tracks that get used season after season. Take the Radical Officials as a good example. They have run for many, many moons at the Nordschleife. Not the best combination, but the drivers do eventually know kind of the tactics there, and they start to get a little bit overconfident in the drafting tactics that get run there. Daytona is a good example, just generally speaking, of drivers thinking, okay, I know this like the back of my hand, I can execute this well, and there's that sense of overconfidence thinking, okay, I got this, I don't need to practice as much, and then the racetrack, just slaps them across the face with a raw salmon and reminds them that, hey, the racing gods are still the ones pulling the shots with these drivers.
You cannot relax. This is a track that will bite you. Even though there's some places with a decent amount of runoff. There's also some spots without some, And this little battle suddenly got interesting. Justin Carney versus John Kaplan for 4th place. Carney, I think, getting a bit used to maybe some of the limitations of that car and is using his braking power to impressive effect to try and get back into P4. Before he gets back into that fight, I want to take a quick mention about Princess Cruises, because they're our 2026 title sponsor for PCA Sim Racing, with 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places they visit, and the friendliest crew at sea. Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Treffin at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on the screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA Travel Concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. This now takes us to the final quarter of the last race of Series 15. It's been a long season, and it's fitting that we end it with a long race. Carney on your screen, still unable to get by John Kaplan, but again, he's quite brave on the binders, maybe a little too brave that time. I think he overshot a tiny bit.
Yeah, just overshot a little bit there. Didn't end up in the runoff area. Didn't hit any sort of wall. So works out okay for him, at least in terms of being able to rebound. But those small little moments like that, Carney not really feeling too comfortable out there on the racetrack. It's understandable to see why. I mean, you can see the front end damage on that machine. It's just slightly squished in there. Usually in these Porsche 911s, you expect the front end to be the long bit and the back end of the car to be the shorter end. Right now, it's kind of the other way around with how much that front end is pushed in, but still looking to make hay with a car that is not shining bright. However, with that moment, John Kaplan has been able to pull a 1-second margin, so just taking a little bit up off of his shoulders as Juan Fong briefly got abducted by a UFO in this battle for 18th between himself and Chris Drankovich. Drankovich, he has been through the ringer so far here tonight, but still holding on to a spot inside the top 20, which, considering that car ended up having one of the hardest hits I have seen is the inside barrier heading down into turn number 1. The fact he's still in that spot is unbelievable.
Oh, Carney manages to get by Kaplan. The job is not done, though. He's going to have the inside coming into turn 1, but as we've seen, the car swinging around the outside can sometimes use that normal racing line to get that much deeper into it, and he just about does, but Justin Carney will retain the spot of P4. Kaplan will try and fight back, no doubt, but I am massively impressed with the way that Justin Carney has bounced back from his earlier mistakes.
Yeah, so Carney, even with the damage on that race car, keeping his nose to the grindstone and working good here in this race. I'm sure there's still a slight sour taste in his mouth, but it's not a bitter taste as we get towards the end of the season. I think there has been some sweetness. He's been able to run well here. I'm not sure if the win would have been in his sights. Maybe, but potentially, considering what happened there with Brad Dunn not too long ago and that half spin down into the West Horseshoe, could have maybe been on the cards, but either way, Justin Carney, I think, can look back on the recovery drive that he's put on so far here. He can look back on it with a strong sense of pride. I think he has every right to try and do that because, you know, considering the damage on that car, it's got to be driving around absolutely terribly, just like a tin can bouncing down the road in a windstorm.
Now, the 144 seems to be driving well enough that he's held onto the back of Marcuson. Saw him lose that spot a little bit earlier. No, actually, I think it was Carmichael maybe that he got by. We saw Marcuson working on some moves, but Adam Holland's still trying to make sure that he can get back into the top 10, not letting him go. They're well behind the next car up the road. Jeffrey Block has got 16 seconds on them, so that's going to be a hard ask for them to try and make that one up. We're down to 25 minutes left. I'm expecting when we get to about the 10-minute mark to go, we'll probably see most of the three stoppers come on in. And that is when we start to get a feeling of where Ken Eskridge is going to wind up. And unfortunately for Brad Dunn, that mistake meant that was a good probably 10 seconds he gave up in the fight with Ken Eskridge.
Side by side here on screen with Keith Marcus and Adam Holland. This is a fight for 10th at the moment. Hang down to turn number 1. Who's going to win out in this fight? Holland running a little bit wide. May pick up a slowdown there by the sim. I can see him sort of drop down. Yeah, I believe that just barely ticked it over. So Keith Marcuson going to hold on to 10th and feel comfortable at least for now, but he overshoots it just a bit, heading off into the Air National Horseshoe, so he is still not out of the woodwork just yet. 25 minutes left to go, not just in this race, but in this season, Joe. Gotta wonder what these racers are thinking about in terms of how aggressive they can get at the end. And the drivers who are close to one another and may start to battle it out, I'm sure some are just considering a sort of all or nothing approach, really only fearing a slap on the wrist by race control.
Well, if they want to participate in future series, I have to imagine that they are going to try and behave themselves, because that definitely follows them around. But Holland unable to get by Marcuson despite his best efforts down into turn 6. He's going to get another little tow. I think I heard Marcuson say over the radio that he felt like Adam had a much quicker car in a straight line. He kind of knows it here, who once again gets right up alongside. He's very shallow into the bus stop. Somehow he actually makes the corner despite being on the inside line going in there.
Near catastrophe there. Yeah, I'm going to amend my previous statement. I'm going to say these drivers won't be going for the jugular, but they may be a bit more trigger happy to swing. I think that's the other way that I can sum it up. These drivers going to bring some level of aggression, but I'm sure many of them want to be out there on the racetrack without any sort of disciplinary action come time for the start of Series 16. As you can see, Holland a little bit slow there. It's always nerve-wracking from the camera shots that we have heading into one of just the very different speeds and very different lines that the drivers take there. It is a bit of a bottleneck effect as you add your way into that turn, and just such an unease felt by, I'm sure these drivers feel that unease just as much as we feel in the broadcast booth, seeing everybody run the different lanes as they nearly came to blows heading into the Air National Horseshoe just a few moments ago.
Yeah, I mean, despite that first corner technically opening up as there's a spin, and Marcuson does a very good job of avoiding getting caught up in that, and poor Adam Holland is going to fall well back as Carmichael also overtakes him. I think he'll only fall to 12th and lose that one position, 2 really, with Marcuson making his way by. It's too far back for Sportis to catch him. Carney, though, still fighting with Kaplan. The car's up at the front. This is very much a cream rises to the top sort of situation, because I was, as we were talking moments ago, checking on our points battle. Messer's still in 3rd. He's above that 4th place cut line. He will clinch his 2nd place with that finishing position. But he's fighting against guys like Leon Snyman, Justin Carney, John Kaplan, and Kenneth Eskridge in the points battle. Guess who's around him? Leon Snyman's in 2nd, Vernon Messer's 3rd, Justin Carney's 4th, John Kaplan is 5th, and Ken Eskridge is 6th.
So a good little pack of competitors, not too far away from each other, but not close enough to really start to give each other a headache, at least in the case of Eskridge. However, for the case of Justin Carney and John Kaplan, they're kind of right over top of each other. Justin Carney still holding on to a fantastic P4 run, considering the damage on the front end of that race car. That is, I mean, I think we haven't really been able to underscore exactly how impressive it is, the fact he's been able to keep that car going in a straight line, holding on to that spot, and keeping solid pace too. I think Justin Carney, had the incidents not gone down, I do seriously consider the prospect of him maybe having been able to grab his 3rd win this season. And if he did, if he was in that position to win for a 3rd time here in this campaign, he would have pretty much tied himself with Brad Dunn for the winner's tally so far this season. They would have taken up 3/4 of the race wins here in this campaign. Impressive stuff.
John Kaplan's got a run, and he moves up to the high side, which seems to have slowed him down a little bit, so that's not going to work for him to retake that 4th place. This is all about 5 to 6 seconds behind Vernon Messer, who's on the podium, at least for the time being. We're still waiting to see whether or not Ken Eskridge winds up ahead of any of these drivers, since they still need an extra pit stop. And at this point, Ken Eskridge is the only one that can do it on 2 stops in this group. But last night, I think we only had 2 drivers as well attempt the 2-stop, and both of them did make it. This time, only one will actually execute firmly on that one. Meanwhile, Brad Dunn, let's see what his lap times look like in comparison. 46.3 last time, Eskridge 46.3. Okay. I'm kind of surprised that Eskridge is continuing to, for the most part, keep pace with Brad Dunn.
Now, Ken Eskridge, he's been a quiet star throughout this season of Challenge Class Racing in Series 15. We talked about him in the opening race of the season, being able to pull off that off-the-wall strategic call to run that race from green to checkered without having to worry about a pit stop. And then his win earlier on this campaign at Sebring, that was super impressive as well. David Sauntry, the black flag right towards the end of this race. Final 20 minutes, that's a bit of a kick in the shins for him. I can't remember, per se, the incident that actually caused that there, so I'll have to look to try and fire my brain cell up.
It was speeding out of the pit lane, so unfortunately he did not wait for the cones, and that meant that he's now going to have to come back in one extra time and sit and serve that. But unfortunate, you got to make sure and pay attention. As we'll sometimes say, you don't want to beat yourself. It's John Kaplan still trying to beat Justin Carney here for that 4th position. He's got him within his sights, but he's not as close as we were watching him do before. We did see a lot of cars last night that went over the incident limit and had to come in, which is something we haven't touched on, Ron, is that the incident limit did not change between the 1-hour race and this 2-hour race. So you have effectively halved what you need to average to get away without a penalty.
I can't remember exactly what the numbers were that I cooked up last week, talking about how these drivers had to average, like how many minutes they would have to go through without an incident point to make it through to the end. But I think the main reason why we haven't touched on it is these drivers have kept it smooth. You know, Joe, you've been around for pretty much all of the races over the past few weeks, so you can speak to this probably more than I have, having been on Club 1 week ago, and of course here tonight. It's probably the cleanest race that we have had so far. These drivers have kept it smooth. They've still given us some battles of note, but they've kept it incredibly clean. Again, giving love to these drivers for keeping it smooth out there on the racetrack, not running into troubles either by themselves or with their competition. There have been a couple of moments every now and then, but considering the incident point hole that these drivers were pretty much in right as they grabbed the green flag, you would have expected those incident point violations to pretty much be a dime a dozen, but they have been very rare.
Yeah, despite the challenge class being, by the numbers, the slowest of the 4 classes we cover here, I'm with you that it shows that the speed doesn't necessarily mean a lack of skill, because this is very impressive that it has run as well as it has. We've only seen a couple spins here or there. Drivers have just mostly kept it on the road, and also haven't really had incidents with each other all that much. If they have had problems, it's been kind of self-inflicted in that sense. I did the math. It's, I believe, just about every 5 minutes they are allowed one incident. That's the average. That is pretty tight. I think that's every 3 laps they can only have one incident. So you definitely got to keep it on the island out there.
Yeah, and here at Daytona, I think those incident points are a bit more common to pick up. Just a small little, 1Xs for going off the track. Not even talking about drivers losing control, picking up 2x, car contact that may go down to get up to 4. It's just those 1x's. It's, again, a kind of a death by a thousand cuts sort of deal. Sean Kaplan getting an amazing exit, hanging out the Le Mans chicane, looking to leapfrog in front of Justin Carney, who was able to leapfrog in front of him not too long ago, side by side on the high banks.
Again, he's got the long way around, but he is side by side at this point. Has some decent speed still. He'll pull right up next to him. And then it's going to be who is better on the brakes. No, it's not. It's going to be who decides to just give that one up. Justin Carney appeared to lift and allows John Kaplan back into fourth.
Yeah, I wonder if Justin Carney was able to think, you know what, I'll let you by, I'll get you back a little bit later on. Or maybe Justin Carney just wants to see the end of this race. As Dave Jones just pulled into pit lane from 8th in the field. That is quite intriguing. Were we expecting a pit stop from him, or was this is this a bit kind of off the wall?
I believe he was usually coming in a little bit early, and again, we do still have everybody except Ken Eskridge essentially needed to come in. There's a few at the back that have already pitted. Taplin, Drankovic, Stevenson is pitted, Santry, Lisa Eskridge as well. They're good to go all to the finish from here. But everybody in front of them, besides Ken, does need to pit one more time. And you can essentially do it whenever you want. It's just the traditional strategy on iRacing is the lighter car is the quicker car. So you tend to want to try and run the car dry and then take a little bit of a splash at the end and sprint off to the checkered flag, which in most cases we've seen drivers get down to about 8 to 5 minutes left to go previously in the races before, but we saw many of the drivers here in the challenge class not make those fuel numbers as well. So I was saying earlier, I think look for around 10 minutes left to be the mark when many of the drivers will take that final little splash and then finish it up.
So small little splash and dash to make it to the end of this race and the end of this season. I think it's a fair remark to make that some of these drivers will probably be using the final few minutes of this season to just look back on the campaigns that they have had, whether it be for your presumptive champion of Brad Dunn looking to keep it clean and green out there on the road to try and seal the deal, whether it be for some of the drivers that still find themselves in the heat of battle like Les Carmichael, who started this race backwards in the grass heading out the International Horseshoe, getting moved on Keith Markinson, who pulls it into pit lane right as that overtake gets performed. So Markinson, latest racer to break away and come down for a little splash and dash here at the end. But at the end of this race, drivers just using this as a sense to kind of reflect on this campaign. You know, it has been a marathon run for these drivers. We think about just this series here in Series 15. These drivers have been running the past 8 races. This campaign started all the way back in January. But if we also, if we take out the winter break between this and Series 14, these drivers have been hitting the racetrack pretty much every other week here in this series, and sometimes a little bit more than that to get the practice in before these races. They've been pretty much in the sim rig day in and day out, or as often as they can be, to get the practice in, to run as well as they can in these races for bordering on half a year. So I think these drivers will be very happy about the offseason, but may use this as a sense to look back on both Series 15 and a little bit of Series 14 if they haven't already done so.
Keith Markinson just got a black flag. I'm checking to see if that was him speeding.
John
and
Kaplan in the pits.
It may have been, yeah. Okay, John Kaplan, yeah. So he's just a tad early. He should be good to go to the finish. Where will he come back out? He's definitely going to be behind Ken Eskridge, so that gives us a good point of reference. Granted, John was fighting for 4th position, and Ken might be run down by him. I think John wasn't all that much quicker. His best lap looks to be actually slower than Ken Eskridge. Ken Eskridge's pace with his fuel savings, something to be admired today.
Yeah, no, props where props are due. Keeping up the good times despite having to do a little bit of fuel saving. We've talked at length about the fuel saving strategies here. Maybe just getting the drift and being able to stay with it there. That is still a very commendable drive that Ken Eskridge has been able to put together. Jonathan Sasportas just filed into the pits himself. So these pit stops continue for the pack that have to come down pit lane. Already just saw one heavy hitter of John Kaplan have to make that pit stop. So just keeping our eyes out to see any other interesting and fascinating names that may have to come in for a low splash and dash. We saw it in the club class 1 week ago. That really changed the complexion of that race as we got towards the end. Even gave us a grandstand finish there. So wondering if we can maybe see that same sort of situation play out once again here 2 weeks in a row in this season finale 2-week period.
Kaplan with 15 seconds in his pit stall, and like I said last night, we were looking at most of the drivers needing 10 seconds to get 10 seconds of fuel to get to the end. So I feel like that's maybe a bit long, or at least maybe a bit cautious on his part to try and bring it home. In the meantime, just in front of him, this is Eskridge ahead of Aguirre and Birkenstock. And also, I want to note that Kaplan came out, 30 seconds behind Ken Eskridge. He's definitely not catching that up in 9 minutes.
You know, he could maybe do that if he had a rocket on the back of his car, but I'm not sure if... I'll have to ask some of these drivers whether or not there's any Porsches that actually come with rocket propulsion. I wouldn't bet on it, though.
There was a hybrid one with a flywheel, which was fascinating. That I believe Williams helped them with that, did some impressive laps around the Nürburgring. This is many years ago at this point, maybe about 16 years ago or so. I'll have to dig up the information on that during the off-season. But, yeah, as we watch the battle rage on here for what is currently 5th place, but is probably going to continue to change, because we know Patrick needs to take a stop. And the car behind him, Birkenstock, no, he does owe us a stop, even though he's a lap down. That's going to hurt all the more. Let's see who comes in this time, since we're down to 8 minutes left to go. And shockingly, I guess my calculations are wrong, drivers able to stay out once more.
Okay, so again, getting those good fuel numbers, as my tongue got wrapped around my teeth a couple of times there. I may have to gargle some WD-40 after this, but everybody hitting their marks as well as they can do. In situations like this, as Jeffrey Block has just pulled it into the pits in the 981 machine, in situations like this, really hitting the fuel marks feels like the only thing kind of in these drivers' controls now, and that is something that these drivers will be able to keep their marks on all throughout. They'll always be able to catch, okay, what sort of fuel number am I doing? They'll either get told by the iRacing crew chief, maybe some of the software that they have to let them know as to how the fuel numbers may be working out, or even just looking at the iRacing UI and seeing the feed on their black box as to what sort of fuel numbers they're hitting and what they may have to do here. As much as fuel saving for some is like their version of hell on earth, it is one that can probably give the driver the most kind of... trying to think of the best way that I can sum it up. They will know better than anything else exactly what they're doing fuel-wise. When it comes to pace, you know, they know what to do. When it comes to fuel, they know what they are doing, if that makes sense.
I think I get where you're coming from on it. And, looks like Andrew Hillman, the latest to come in for his final stop. Now, Patrick, I'm kind of surprised, is still sitting behind Ken Eskridge, unless he's also trying to save fuel, but he's now coming in. I kind of thought maybe Ken would just let him go, because he's not really racing him since he needed that final stop. Of course, Ken might not have been fully aware of that. And yeah, there goes Snyman back out, and that is behind Ken Eskridge. It is about 5 seconds the difference. He'd have to have very good pace over Ken Eskridge to try and take the win. That should mean Brad Dunn, I think, should be able to emerge ahead of Ken Eskridge.
As long as he can keep it clean. We didn't think that he would have a moment, but he did a bit earlier on here. Just needs to hit his marks as we got to the final 5.5 minutes of this race. But it's a lot easier said than done. No pun intended there. I just realized that once I spit that out of my mouth. But Brad Dunn just looking to try and seal the deal at the end of this season. 37 seconds in margin between himself and Ken Eskridge. Has to come down that for that final stop, potentially, as contact made there. Sauntry and Stevenson, and that's immediate incident point violation and DQ there for Sauntry. Oh, and Jack Stevenson kind of gives lucky stars. In fact, he kept that on the road as Brad Dunn files into pit lane for his final stop of the season.
Yeah, so there you go, off into the ether for the 511. That's a good example of the incident limit being a little bit harder at this track. Brad Dunn finds his stall, does not overshoot it. Eskridge coming around NASCAR 3 and 4 right now. We've seen cars between 7 and 10 seconds taking their fuel so far, and Brad Dunn was 7.5. He's already out and on his way. He will be our leader after all stops are done.
Yeah, there's Ken Eskridge having to worry about a bit of traffic to cut his way through. Even if it doesn't work out for him to grab the win, which is, it's not looking like it will go that way, a P2 result for Ken Eskridge will still be absolutely fantastic. This has been a bit of a breakout season, I would say, Joe, for Ken. Able to grab that win at Sebring a bit earlier on in this campaign with, if I remember correctly, that's his first win in PCA competition. So very good mark for him. That right there, I think that was the Lego machine of Joe Birkenstock potentially looping it around, heading out of the International Horseshoe. I saw him in the grass trying to get turned back around as Les Carmichael has come into the pits from 8th here in this race. But Ken Eskridge, between that win and some other fantastic results throughout this campaign, grabbing a slew of podiums, some good results sprinkled throughout the campaign, and not really any low points. Maybe there are a few sprinkled in, but that's just about it. Ken Eskridge has been maybe one of the most impressive drivers throughout this season. I want to give him the love that is most certainly owed. Driver the 77 has been able to put together a solid campaign here in Series 15. Of course, we do have that summer break, but he and his wife Lisa race in the PCA Team Racing Series, so not a lot of time to rest for them. It will keep the juices flowing, and come time for the start of Series 16, we may have to keep our eyes on Ken Eskridge to see what he may be able to do come time for that.
Yeah, he had that win, and if he manages to finish in this P2, it'll be his second podium along with that win this season. So not too shabby. I agree with you. He's got about 3.5 seconds over the next nearest car. And let's see, Dunn just crossed the line a few minutes ago. So that should be 2 to go now at this stage. So really not much left here in Series 15 for this to wrap up. Just outside of the top 10. So Sportis finds himself trying to keep on the lead lap, but also keep Adam Holland behind, who is the last car on the lead lap.
Yeah, so time running out for these drivers, but yeah, I said that these drivers were maybe sensing now that it's a good time to look back on their season. Of course, Brad Dunn, our presumptive champion, is probably thinking about that right now. He's only about a lap and a half away from victory. For Brad Dunn, how is he going to look back on this season? I'm sure he's going to look back on it with a lot of pride, a lot of jubilation, able to seal the deal effectively with one race to spare. But there is, I'm sure, probably going to be a little part of him thinking ahead to what may arise come time for next season, for next series in Series 16, as he's very likely to jump up into one of our other classes. So Brad Dunn, I think it may be some slightly mixed emotions as he comes on to turns number 3 and 4 on the oval to take the white flag, as he's looking to try and seal the deal on his 4th win here in Series 15 and his championship.
I got another twist in the tail. Ken Eskridge last lap, a 47.8. Snyman was a 45.6. He's already cut it down to 0.8 of a second. I think Ken may have cut it a little closer than he wanted to on the fuel, and I kind of wondered about that for where he pitted. I figured he was pretty much right on the bubble. This time by 47.9. So yeah, he's still out there saving. He'll still be on the podium even if Leon gets by him, but he does have to be able to get to the line. Hopefully he has enough fuel, because I'd hate to see him sputter and not be able to get to the finish and collect what has been a fantastic race. And in fact, you can tell that Leon Snyman was not used to the slow pace of that 77, because he nearly got into the back of him.
Yeah, nearly ended in tears as they head their way off through the International Horseshoe, now through the kink into the West Horseshoe for the final time here this season. Snyman closing up that gap once again, but this is not the point to attack. It's onto the high banks that he's going to have to try and get the move done. Maybe at the moment he's just forcing Ken Eskridge to be a bit more aggressive into the braking zones, because he knows, okay, if you're trying to do some fuel saving, I'm going to force you in a position where you can't do any at all. They head their way back onto the high banks. Now with just nothing really, the gap between those drivers, only about 0.4 of a second. I have a feeling that whether or not he's running out of fuel or not, Leon Snyman may be able to get this move done and should barely eke out a second place finish out of this race.
He's not going to do it down through the Le Mans chicane, but if there's any sputters from Ken Eskridge, if he's that tight on fuel, he's going to certainly lose the position coming to the line. It's got plenty over Messer to the end. This driver had plenty over everybody as he takes the most wins of the season with 4. Brad Dunn is your victor. Ken Eskridge is still ahead of Leon Snyman. Does he have enough fuel? It's coming right down to the line. So far, so good, and he does it. Ken Eskridge, an amazing effort for P2, as Snyman still gets a very well-deserved third after starting 9th today.
All of our podium finishers putting in some great drives. It was not a smooth night for many here at Daytona, 2-hour-long race, as it turns out. Having a lot of curveballs thrown these drivers' ways, but our podium runners all with a fantastic story to get to that podium finish, to bring an end to this Series 15 campaign, not just for the Challenge class, but for the entirety of the PCA sim racing ranks. I think we ended off on a pretty good note here, Joe. That was a fun race.
It was, and Dave Jones deserves some credit there that we just saw him finish. He was up 9 positions as well, starting from 17th, finishing in 8th. As it's going to be Jeffrey Block beating out Les Carmichael by, it's like, that is Jeffrey Block just finishing ahead of Chris Strankovich. That was a lap car. That was not for position between the pair of them. Adam Holland will manage to finish on the last lap in the end, sitting in at 12. 12 cars getting all 67 laps done here today in the last race of Series 15 here for the PCA Challenge class. I do hope the drivers enjoyed it as much as we did, because this new format for the finale added a fresh bit of drama for all involved. Brad Dunn, as I mentioned, is your winner. Kenneth Eskridge was P2. Leon Snyman rounds out your podium, and Vernon Messer will clinch his second place in the championship with that 4th. Justin Carney, was 5th. John Kaplan wound up 6th, as Patrick Aguirre was P7. Dave Jones 8th, and Jeffrey Block in 9th. Les Carmichael rounding out your top 10. Jonathan Sportis was 11th, Adam Holland 12th. Then the cars a lap down include Andrew Hillman with that long stop we still haven't quite figured out in 13th, Joe Birkenstock 14th, and Keith Markison P15. Tim Taplin, another driver really jumping up the order. He winds up 16th. Chris Strankovich was 17th, and Juan Fong 18th. Jack Stevenson 19th, and Lisa Eskridge, with more than those 2 stops, unfortunately, was 20th. It was Gary Shank 21st, Sherry Lee 22nd, David Sauntry, your first DNF. Harpreet Bath also didn't make it, neither did Schussler at the end. Let's have a chat with Brad Dunn after not only having his championship confirmed before today's race, he is going to end it on a high note. Brad, for all the races, it was all kind of a question mark of, okay, which is going to be quicker, the 2 or the 3 stops? You seemed committed from early on to the 3 stops. How confident were you before you emerged on that final pit stop that you would be the leader?
Well, I saw that. You can hear me, right? Sorry.
Yep, I gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, I was the only person I thought that might be doing it was Ken, and I was trying to keep track of him. I went a couple of laps, or one lap longer than Leon and I think Vernon, so I saw them pit, so I knew I was all right with that. And then they just didn't know where I'd come out in front of Ken, and it was about, I don't know, like 9 seconds. So it worked out. Two stop wasn't working for me in any of the practices, so I never really considered it.
And unfortunately, it wasn't a perfect race. We saw at least one spin out there. We were talking a bit about how this track is deceiving because it looks like it should be simple, but we've seen in all 4 races that it's pretty tough. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I saw all my friends spinning at turn 6 last night, and I was just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I was like, Andrew was lapped down in front of me, but he had really good pace, very similar, and I was trying not to make him lose much, and I did get past him, and then I had somebody in my mirrors, and I just sort of lost focus there for a second, lost about 6 seconds, and it was not too bad. I was in the right spot to have a small spin like that happen.
Well, it's a title, most wins in your class. Are you looking forward to potentially moving up to sport next time around in Series 16, or do you want to try and stay here and challenge?
Oh, I don't think they'll probably let me stay, but I'm looking forward to go to sport. We have a great group of sport and challenge drivers that get together 3 or 4 nights a week, sometimes 5 nights a week, that we practice together in the sport challenge groups, and I'm glad that I'll still be able to hang out with those people. Shout out to Jeff Block, John Kaplan, Leon, Ken. Those are the regulars that show up day in and day out, and they've been a lot of fun to race with over the season.
Well, savor it. Congratulations on the title, and hopefully we'll see you come August.
Thanks to everything you do, and thanks to my wife, Diane, putting up with me and saying, "Are you going to go up there and start racing?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I'm going to bed." So, good night.
Good night to you, Brad. That's our winner here in the challenge class. Meanwhile, the Fuelmeister, Ken Eskridge, is with Ron.
Yeah, Ken Eskridge joining us here in the booth. Ken, welcome in. Joe just called you the Fuelmeister. I think that may have to be your new nickname. Well done on that P2 finish here tonight. That was a fantastic drive that you were able to put together. How was it out there?
Terrible. I just barely made it. I about quit a bunch of times. I've been having health issues, and I didn't think I was going to make it the whole race.
Oh, well, certainly glad that we had you make it to the end of this race, both on the fuel side of things and the health side of things. I was going to ask you just about your thoughts on the season as a whole. You're able to put in some fantastic performances, including a win. So just final thoughts on this season before we head off into the summer break.
Well, I think I got lucky. All of my good finishes like this one, I saved fuel, and I came out wanting to go fast, and I couldn't go fast. So about, I don't know, quarter through the race, I thought, well, I'll just start fuel saving because I'm not fast anyway. And I guess it worked out.
Well, you did show some speed. I don't want you to beat up on yourself too much. It was a great campaign that you were able to put together here in Series 15, and looking forward to seeing you hit the racetrack for Series 16 come time for the end of August. Ken, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back out there on the racetrack here in the PCA world in the not-too-distant future.
Okay, I want to thank Leon for not passing me there at the end, because I know he did it because it was my birthday today. So, and thank my wife, Lisa, and then all the PCA admins for putting all this together. It's been great.
Oh, and happy birthday, Ken. We I would feel bad if we didn't say that right at the end of this interview. Happy birthday. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you out there on the racetrack for Series 16.
All right, thank you.
And that right there was Ken Eskridge, our P2 finisher. Joe, with that being taken care of, I'll pass the mic off to you.
Yep, because I've got Leon Snyman with me, and Leon, Ken just said that he knows that you didn't pass him because it was his birthday. Is that actually true? Did you hold back so that you could give him a little gift there?
I'm going to say yes. Happy birthday, Ken.
Well, talk about the rest of the race, though, because you were on that 3-stop strategy, so you could push there at the end. Is there anything in the race that you feel like you didn't quite maximize? It looked like Brad kind of had the measure of a lot of drivers, but you certainly were on top of things for much of this one from what we could see.
Yeah, well, the first thing I did wrong was qualify in 9th place or something. I just couldn't get any pace and any speed. Did a 1:44 in practice today and just couldn't do it in the real race. So that was the one thing. And then I guess the track just kept on getting hotter. But luckily I found my way through the field and managed to get there in the end.
You've got a break now, as we got about 4 months until you hop back in for Series 16. Do you have any plans over the summer to try and distract yourself from the lack of sim racing?
No, there won't be a lack. We've got a zone group championship, and we've also got one of the races in the TRS, which is the 3-hour races. So we've got enough to fill our plate, and the nice thing about Challenge and Sport League is we practice together probably 4 or 5 times a week. So we got plenty to keep us busy.
Well, I'm glad that you'll have lots to entertain you. It's awesome to see how much PCA puts out for the huge amount of drivers out there. And again, congratulations on a top 3 to wrap it up tonight.
Thanks. If I can just thank all the PCA instructors and Rob Nebel and Mike Pedersen. You guys just, they put out so much of their time. And I just want to give a special thank you to David Mendonca. This is my first season and also his first season, but he gave me a lot of advice and, just pointed out mistakes that I made and really helped me to improve my season. So thanks, David.
That was Leon Snyman, our 3rd place finisher here in the last race of Series 15. Which now takes us to a big thank you, of course, to everybody behind the scenes for helping make this series happen. Of course, big one goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing for all of their hard work, and our team here tonight, Hugo and Ron. And thank you for watching. I'm Joe Peak. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
Exciting and new. Some celebrations are felt beyond words. No one connects you to the ones you love like Princess. Princess Cruises. Book now.